All righty. Good morning and welcome, Board of Regents and our BESE members, to the December joint BESE and Board of Regents meeting. I'm Misty Cordell, the chair of the Board of Regents. And on the behalf of our Regent staff, we are pleased to see everyone here today from both boards. We'll start with the roll call. Mr. Tavares Walker, will you please call the roll? And then Emily will call the roll for Regents.
Good morning. Mr. Appel? Here. Mr. Appel is present. Dr. Armstrong? Here. Dr. Armstrong is present. Mr. Birkin? Mr. Birkin is not present. Mr. Castillo? Here. Mr. Castillo is present. Ms. Champagne?
Here.
Ms. Champagne is present. Dr. Clark? Dr. Clark is not present. Mr. Harris?
Here.
Harris is present. Mr. Hollis? Mr. Hollis is not present. Ms. Holloway?
Here.
Present. Ms. Mellerin? Ms. Mellerin not present. Mr. Morris?
Present.
Mr. Morris is present. We have a quorum vested.
Okay. And Emily?
Regent Aubrey. Regent Cordell.
Present.
Regent Creed. Regent David. Regent Finley. Regent Glazer. Regent Hickson.
Here.
Regent May. Regent Meir. Regent Pryor. Regent Reeves. Regent Sarda. Regent Shamia. Regent Sterling.
Here.
Regent Temple. Regent Williams Brown. We have a quorum.
All right. Emily, are there any public comments?
There are none.
Right. Next is the approval of minutes from the August 20th, 2025 meeting. Are there any questions? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the minutes? Moved by Regent Reeves.
Second.
All right, we got a second. Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes. Next, we will receive a report on the 2025 Kevin P. Riley Senior Louisiana Education Quality Trust Fund. We are pleased to welcome Dr. John Fleming, our treasurer, state treasurer, here today, and Amy Matthews, the Treasury's Chief Investment Officer, to present this item. Dr. Fleming, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. Well, the investment income generated by the fund is dedicated solely to providing educational enrichment programs from pre-kindergarten through college. The Act established the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, BESE, and the Board of Regents as beneficiaries. In addition, the Act provided for the State Treasurer to invest these funds. The LEQTF was established with an initial deposit of $540 million from the Outer Continental Shelf Lands Act. In 2004, the trust fund's market value surpassed $1 billion. In 2005, the total allocation of earnings to the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education and the Board of Regents exceeded that same milestone of $1 billion in distributions. In 2013, the fund was renamed in honor of Representative Kevin P. Riley, Sr., recognizing one of his proudest legislative accomplishments and his lifelong commitment to education. In 2025, the total allocations to BESE and the Board of Regents had grown to more than $1.996 billion, while the market value of the fund reached $1.777 billion. In 2025, the fund generated a total income of $71 million, with $27 million allocated to the permanent fund and $44 million to the support fund. The support fund is divided evenly between BESE and the Board of Regents, approximately $22 million each. At this point, I'll turn it over to Amy, who will provide more detailed insights into this year's results.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Amy Matthews, the CIO. With me, I have Ryan Pereira, one of our great managers at Treasury. Just to give you a little caveat, I am from New Orleans. The accent can be thick, so if you have a problem, just let me know. One of the things I do want to point out is these are the terms that we will use interchangeably with this. In Treasury, we know this fund as the LEQTF fund. In BESE, y'all know it as the 8G fund. In Regents, it's the Regents Support Fund. it's all the same fund, so I can use the terms as I need, but please remember, we're all one big happy family here. So let's look at the math. In the beginning, to ensure the growth of this fund over time, the following math was established. The permanent fund, or the corpus, retains 25% of earnings and royalties and 75% of capital gains. Conversely, the AG Support Fund and the Support Fund receive 75% of earnings and royalties and 25% of capital gains. Now let's look at this year's returns. By state statutes, we look at or judged against the 30-day Treasury bill rate and the 2-year Treasury note. And as you can see, as the columns go across, the 30-day Treasury note bill resulted at a 4.80 at the end of the year. The 2-year note at a 5.47. We also used the Bloomberg Government Corporate Bond Index for the fixed income portion. And this one returned a 6.74 at the end of the year. So the fixed income portion of the portfolio returned a 6.07. So we beat 2 out of the 3 benchmarks on this. And mainly that occurred because of the possibility of the sale of the portfolio. We did leave a lot of money coming in on a short-term basis, which was earning 4% at the time, but that's why we're slightly under the Bloomberg Corporate Bond Index. Now, equities, on the other hand, the state makes us look at the S&P 500, which returned 5.16 at the end of the year, fiscal year. The Vanguard funds that we are invested in, which is the majority of the portfolio in equity, earned or returned 16.3. The equity dividends returned, which is a group of about 34 individual holdings of companies, returned 3.46. So overall, the LEQTF portfolio returned 8.64 for the year of fiscal year 2025. So, but remember, the broad design of this portfolio is to earn income for the beneficiaries. So what we're going to look at now is the sources of the income. There are 3 major sources. First one, and if you can see this, sorry for the smallness of it, but on the blue line, which is the one in the middle doing this, is the investment income. Last year, we earned $50 million total. Since inception, for year over year, it's earned $47 million. So we did a little bit better than the inception. The orange line, which is the really big one, is the capital gains. Last year, we took almost $20 million in capital gains. On average, it's about 13.6. So we did better than that. And then the green line, which is the one that's trailing down, way down on the line, is the royalty income. And as we've known through the years, those of you who have been on this road before, this has been definitely going down. We earned 1.36. Since inception, on a yearly basis, it was 17.58. We'll talk about this later at the end. So next is the allocation. From that source of income, we do allocations to the BESE and Regents funds. It's an annual allocation, and per the math we discussed before with the 75-25 split between portfolios, we earned about $44 million as totals, so that ended up being a $22 million split, more or less, between the 2 funds, BESE and Regents. Now, this is the cumulative average, the cumulative allocations to the fund, which I'm really proud of this. If you look at the blue bars, which is your inside small bars, this is the permanent fund. We are technically at $932 million in the permanent fund throughout these years, as Dr. Fleming said earlier, we started at 540, and it has now grossed up to 932 million. The orange bars is the AG and support fund averages. And over the years, we have given y'all together approximately $2 billion for you to work with. And it's 1.996 exactly, but anyway, $2 billion for y'all to go and work and give back to the people of Louisiana. The green line is the total of both, which is just under $3 billion this year, 2.928. I'm really proud of this. I hope y'all are too, because this, for 38 years, this has done well for the state. Now, the financial benefit, not only with working with you all and what you all do with this money throughout the state. Originally, we started with 540. The market value of the fund at the end of June 30th was 1.777. The total income to BESE and Regents, just under $2 billion. So you subtract out the original, and $3.233 billion has been spent, or could be spent, as with the portfolio with y'all. Now let's look at the portfolio itself. This is how it ended up at the end of the fiscal year. Technically, we are, by state statutes, a 65% fixed income versus 35% equity. We did try years, probably 4 years ago, to get that, to increase the equity, but it didn't pass. It was a constitutional amendment, and it was said no by the people. So we're 65-35. At the end of the year, we had about $100 million in cash, so that's about $5.6 million. We had treasuries and agencies of about $773 million, or 43.5. We had corporate bonds of $250 million approximately at 14% of the portfolio, and other securities around $17 million, which is less than 1%. So that was 64.1%. Equities had done very well this year, and we had $638 million, which equaled to about 35.9% of the portfolio. So that's how it ended on June 30th. I do want you to know that we do rebalance back, and actually we wait after we do all our figuring, and we did rebalance and reduce that. Thus, we'll have some capital gains this year. Now, what is the equity composition? So the equity total was about 35.9%. We have 5 Vanguard funds that we've been in for probably 20-something years. That equaled to about $512 million, or 29% of the equity portion. And then we own those equity dividend stocks. We call them the dividend stocks because what we looked at years ago when the rates were down to 2.25, we realized that certain companies were giving out dividends at a much higher yield, like 5% at the time. So that's when we bought into this portfolio and did we tried to mimic the dividend equity portfolio of Dow Jones. And we've been holding on to these because we've not seen the dividends, if anything, have increased through time, so they really are maintaining their yield for us. In addition to, we're getting dividends every quarter, which again, y'all get to play with. So that's about 7% of the whole portfolio of equity, and that's about $126 million. So that equals to the 35.9%. Now, in addition to what the state makes us look at for benchmarks, we have our own internal benchmarks. Mainly, it's the same thing. However, for the index funds, we've done a blended, since we have such a variety, so we try to find a blended level so we can see exactly where we are on those. And the equity dividend portfolio, we look at the Dow Jones dividend portfolio. So in general, as you can see, the portfolio ended up at $1.777 billion, and with a return of 8.64 with the against the blended benchmark, it's which was 8.67. So we were just slightly down from our blended, which is really good. I sit on a lot of the pension boards, not to talk about them badly, but you know, again, benchmarks are very important to know where you're following, where you're doing things correctly, and we're right on top of it. Finally, we're looking at royalties. As y'all know, it's the GOMESA, it's old oil rigs, it's not a lot of new stuff going out there. In general, we got 1.36 million. The average was 17.5 per year since inception. Right now, this 6 months, we're at 900,000, the first 6 months of this year. Last year, one of the gentlemen from one of the boards asked about whether there was some stuff going on in DC to move, because we're only looking at the first 3 miles is what is involved in this portfolio. There was something that they were trying to push it out to 8 miles or 9 miles. And unfortunately, that's still not in the works. So in general, as time goes on, we'll see what happens, but this is the only, unfortunately, the royalties are not the best situation right now. So that pretty much concludes what I have for you all. If there's any questions at this point about anything? Hearing no questions? All right, excellent, all right. Just to make one little statement, we are prepared for the next rounds of voting in May. We will be at the door with that, making sure if everything goes right, and we will be working diligently to make sure that teachers' retirement system gets what they need. So, and just to give you an idea of where we are right now, as of November, the portfolio was at a market value of $1.8 billion, with the $600 million or so coming from Millennium, which is the other portfolio we have, which has EAF money. It will be about, as of November, a $2.4 billion, which I think is sort of in the realm of what they need. So we shall see, though. Of course, we got to wait till, you know, May. Any questions? Yes, sir. Sorry.
I've got a quick question. Thank you for the report. It's fantastic, very detailed. I can't help, though, in wondering, as the large amounts of monies over time continue to dwindle, kind of what's our strategy? And I know we've talked about this, so this may be a bit for the commissioner and the superintendent, and maybe a longer discussion. But what can you kind of give us a summary of what are we doing to use those funds a little better over the continuum? When we have these joint meetings between BESE and Board of Regents, it's a conversation between higher ed, K-12, and early childhood education. And where are there possibilities of improving the allocation, the use of those funds to better education? Just maybe at a high level, please.
I think I would direct some of this back to the treasurer and his team, but that discussion could change significantly depending on the outcome of an upcoming public vote. And so, I mean, the commissioner and I spend a lot of time thinking about how to make sure we have a seamless transition from initiatives K-12 through higher ed, but there's no doubt that once we have this upcoming vote of the public, that will certainly impact decision making going forward. But I would defer a little bit to the treasurer and his team on thinking through what the impact of that vote could be.
So are we referring to the proportion of equities versus interest?
I mean, what he's referring to is the constitutional amendment. Technically, what will happen is LEQTF and part of Millennium will be sold and paid to teachers' retirement system to down to pay down the debt that the state owns to that. So this technically, as far as I can see, goes away, this money for y'all.
Thank you.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I had one. I was the one who raised the question last time about the boundaries for the continental shelf, so thank you for that response. I haven't given up hope yet, so I hope that's still being worked in D.C. So, but I did have a follow-up question. I was just wondering, looking forward again, if you guys are aware of any potential conversations about royalties from carbon sequestration.
I really don't, but I do have a great connection over at DNR now, or whatever they're called. If you could send me that question, I will be happy to ask him and get it back to you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Fleming and Ms. Matthews. We appreciate the information and the complex issues that this potential change means for our campuses and our systems. Any other questions from anyone else? All right, thank you so much.
Thank y'all, and have a very happy
you.
holiday season.
Too. Next, I would like to invite Vineeth Angar, for the Executive Director of Connect LA, to share some information about the Office of Broadband. Vineeth has been working really hard. I want to give him some props for all of the work he's done and the diligence that he's put forth in order to get some great things across the finish line. Vineeth, the floor is yours.
Okay. Well, good morning, folks. Really appreciate the opportunity to present what I think is really remarkable results and achievements that we've really hit on over the last couple of years. And just to remind some of the folks that may have not been here when I started back in 2021, but the genesis of this office was really funded by the two folks that are on your right, Misty, and folks like Ronnie and Terry, which is, you know, when our office was created legislatively back in 20, it's easy to create legislation. It's always harder to what? Fund it. And so in 2021, you had the startup capital for our office was provided by both CADE and BESE and the Board of Regents. The legislature was actively involved in making sure that people singularly are the focus of our efforts, which is to connect folks throughout the state of Louisiana. And when we, and my eye, look, I'm getting a little bit older in life, so my eyes are getting a little bit worse. So I wanted to oversimplify this message with a bunch of numbers, which I think I'll provide some context and really cool context behind every one of these slides. 424,619. When I started the office in 2021, this isn't the number of people in Louisiana that were not connected. This was the number of households and small businesses and community anchored institutions that did not have access to high-speed, affordable internet. And when you think about a household in Louisiana, what's the multiplier? Every household has about 2.9 people. So if you think about the challenge that we had back in 2021 in terms of trying to rapidly close the digital divide, 424,619 unique addresses in Louisiana did not have access to connectivity. We're talking about well over 1.2 million Louisianians. So that's the 2021 number. Q1 of 2024, the first quarter of Governor Landry's administration, we knocked that number down from 424,619 to 292,536. So what that effectively means is this: 83% of the state was covered with high-speed internet. So let's use, because between 21, 22, and 23, we had to do a bunch of administrative things to start executing the program. And so the other thing is that the Federal Communications Commission started to develop better maps. And so Q1 of 2024 is what we use as sort of the starting point to really start to see the acceleration of how rapidly we close the digital divide. So that's Q1 of 2024. 83% of the state was served with high-speed internet. This is what the number looks like today. So we went from 424,000 household small businesses, community anchor institutions, to 127,108 households, community anchor institutions, and small businesses that still do not have access to high-speed internet, which effectively means we went from 83% served to 93% in just 24 months. So the reason why those numbers are rapidly going down is and look, full disclaimer, I know Regent Aubrey is here. We have committed dollars to AT&T. They're doing a fantastic job. In fact, I think on January 22nd, we're trying to get the governor and us to go up and to do a ribbon cutting of a completed project. What you're rapidly seeing is because of the free market and because of competition and because of inherently companies like AT&T and others using private capital to build, you also have federally funded projects from the FCC, from U.S. Treasury, and from Commerce that are now funding a lot of the CapEx for companies to build in locations where it's really disparate and widespread. You're seeing the companies step up, and you're seeing the private sector step up. This is a phenomenal number because if you really think about it, in 2 years' time, we've effectively filled the equivalent of 4 Tiger stadiums full of people that now have connectivity. And it isn't just connectivity to mediocre technology, but it's largely, if not singularly, fiber connectivity. It's going to the house. A lot of it is buried infrastructure. In fact, yesterday I was in Abbeville to celebrate a ribbon cutting for a project that we funded with Cajun Broadband in Vermilion Parish, of which 100% of that network is buried. That is critical because Chris Disher, who is the owner of Cajun Broadband, showed me a picture of a tree that had fallen several weeks ago due to a storm. None of their customers received an outage because everything is buried. So the companies are not only building quickly, but they're building it in the right way. This is what we think the number is going to look like in 2028, if not sooner, at the rate at which companies are building, which is 0. That is a big deal for these folks in Louisiana. Because what that effectively means is the state will have been 100% served. Right? And we're talking about every nook and cranny. I get texts from the mayors of villages like Rodessa, Louisiana, who have said, we're almost complete. Our village is complete, and Comcast is the builder. We get folks in Vermilion Parish who say we're getting built. Webster Parish, Morehouse, every nook and cranny of this state, whether you're a village president, you're a city, municipality, we're actually going to every single area of the state. That's a big deal. 0. Sometimes 0 is not necessarily a good number. But from our purpose and from your purposes, this should be a day in which effectively it's a mission accomplished day. Okay, so 2028, if not sooner, is when we expect that number to be 0. A couple of weeks ago, the governor announced the generational investment, the $1.36 billion that we're receiving from the infrastructure bill to attack the last remaining 7% of the state. This 7% of the state are the locations that are the most expensive. These are locations that are often 5-10 miles away from each other. A location is literally, let's say, 123 Main Street, 123 Smith Street. And so we have enough money to solve the problem. But this is what's really important with these two numbers. 70% of those dollars are going to Louisiana companies. We did not design the program to tip the scale to Louisiana companies. It just so happened that Louisiana companies competed, and they competed exceedingly well. So we're awarding companies like Pelican Broadband in Northeast Louisiana, companies like Cajun Broadband, as I mentioned, companies like Skyrider, companies that are in the West Monroe area, companies like Rev, companies like Swift. And over 80% of that infrastructure is going to be buried. Because if you're going to invest in all this infrastructure, and you're letting the market forces work, let's do it the right way, and let's bury this infrastructure once and for all, because I don't want to have to deal with this problem. I don't want to have to work on broadband for the rest of my life. So, and neither should you have to worry about this issue for the rest of your lives. So, so that's a really big win also for Louisiana, is that 70% of these dollars are going to Louisiana companies, and over 80% of this infrastructure is going to be buried. This is a high-class problem that that we now have, that we need to continue to work with the feds to tackle. You know, out of the $1.36 billion in infrastructure bill money, because we ran such a maniacally efficient process on how we awarded these dollars, before June 6th, we were going to have approximately $550 million left, of which we were going to obligate, under the governor's direction, $100 million to BESE. It was going to be $50 million to Board of Regents, $20 million to LSU Ag, $100 million to LDH, and so on and so forth, to start to see and leverage broadband as an asset platform enabler to drive Louisiana's economic growth. June 6th, we got a policy notice from the feds, from the U.S. Department of Commerce, saying we needed to start all over. Okay, so all the results we had in the past and how we were going to allocate the $1.36 billion, including how we were going to allocate some of the funds to the state agencies. We were given a notice on June 6th that you have to start all over. You have to rebid everything. And not only do you have to rebid everything, but you have to do it in 90 days. Okay, so I remember a conversation that the governor and I and Secretary Lutnick had on June 12th. And then it was an early morning conversation. The governor turned to me and says, "Can you do it?" And I said, "Well, yes, we will do it. Just please call my wife because she'll be upset because we had summer plans." And he says, "I'm happy to do anything as long as let's get the job done." And so we're grateful that we have an incredible team in our office. We're actually on the second floor, so if any of you all want to understand better what these maps look like, how we're making these investment decisions, then please feel free to stop by. We're on the second floor of this building. So we started cranking again. We actually delivered better results. We did it not just in 90 days, but actually in 60 days. We resubmitted our results to the feds on August 15th. So June 12th, we had the conversation, and August 15th, we resubmitted our results. And the result is we no longer have $550 million available in funds outside of the traditional infrastructure that we're now going to spend $500 million, but that number has jumped to $835 million. So we effectively saved another $285 million by being even more efficient. So that's the high-class problem we have, is the governor is adamant that he does not want to return any of these dollars back to D.C., number one. Number two, on September 8th, he sent a letter to Secretary Lutnick saying because we ran such an efficient process, we should not be penalized for that efficient process. And as a result, we should use the remaining of these dollars to focus on priorities that are impactful to economic development, workforce development, education, et cetera. And so we will continue to make those efforts to reach out to the feds with respect to these dollars. In fact, I was with the governor 2 days ago, and so he has tasked me now to write guidance that we can then hand deliver to the feds on how the feds should use these dollars. So we will do that on behalf of the 49 other states as well. So, so that's where we are with the remaining dollars. Now, the feds, specifically Commerce, has said that they will issue guidance by the end of the first quarter of next year, which is good, because I think now there's enough pressure that's being placed within Commerce or within the folks at the White House that these dollars are important. But nonetheless, all of you have your own spheres of influence in D.C. All of you work very closely with both Department of Education, Department of Labor, and so these dollars, there's not a congressional requirement in D.C. to draw down these dollars. These dollars are actually sitting in the Department of Commerce, in our accounts, that all we're waiting for right now is just guidance. And so the governor has tasked me to draft that guidance, which I will do, which I will course through him, which we will then continue to make that effort to pitch and fight for those dollars. And the last thing, and I think this is always important. Yes, sir.
I'll ask you one quick question. So I'll give you a praise and I got a question. So my praise comes in the fact, or in the way of, first, these last people in Louisiana to be connected. I'm glad it's buried, and I'm glad it's that you've negotiated through that process to make sure that it keeps them from being vulnerable in the future. And so that's great. my question is this, are there any of those dollars with the existing infrastructure? A lot of it is not buried.
Right.
And so is there a plan for any of these dollars to take, okay, so now that everybody's going to be served, there's going to be, now that everybody's connected, who is the most vulnerable at that point? And are any of those dollars going to be used to redo, basically, their infrastructure in a buried format to keep them from being vulnerable?
That's a great question. So it's really any internet service provider that has legacy infrastructure, that infrastructure might be pole to pole, so it's aerial. So the question is, can we use some of our dollars to incentivize an internet service provider to have them rebury that to take that infrastructure and rebury it? The unfortunate answer is no. So this has to be for brand new infrastructure and for locations that do not have an existing federal fund attached to it. And that's the tricky part is, if you look at a map of Louisiana on a street, let's say in Grant Parish or LaSalle or wherever, you'll often see on that street 10 houses, let's say 10 houses for argument's sake. You might have different federal funds being attached to every one of those houses by a different provider. And that's what creates a jigsaw puzzle, because the complexity of this work is that very nature of, you're going to have to create, we had to do a bunch of different things to ensure that every single Louisianan in a project area for new work, for these new projects, were covered. Because in the conversations we were having with people, and we've traveled around the state quite a bit, we've visited over 100 cities, towns, and villages throughout Louisiana. The problem statement and challenge that most people often had, which is really driven by fear, was, am I going to be left out of this whole process? So the way we created these project areas was to ensure that every single one of those locations were going to be, had a federal fund attached to it, but also was going to be served. This is always an important slide, just because, look, we're in Louisiana, and it's important from a ranking perspective to understand where we stack up against peers. I just wanted to remind also folks that when our office was created legislatively in 2020, there weren't many offices of broadband at that time. And so broadband and infrastructure is one of those really unique plays where every state effectively started from the same starting position. So, oftentimes we're like, hey, we're way behind Texas, blah, 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 okay? I really don't care about Texas and other states, right? So our goal was that every state had the same starting position, pole position, in terms of both broadband policy and execution. And as a state, we actually ranked number one in terms of policy and execution. What's interesting is we actually got federal approval January 12th of this year for our plans. We were the first to be approved in the previous administration. We then cranked again. We were the first to be approved in the current administration with a completely different set of rules. So our team and our effort collectively as a state is the best. Number 8, so among all of our peer states, which is really the 50 states, we ranked number 8 in terms of cost efficiency. And so that number is something we're also proud about, right? The $835 million. Texas is going to have $2 billion in cost savings, right? But Texas also had $3.3 billion in their allocation, as opposed to $1.36 billion that we received. But if you look at it from an absolute perspective, we ranked number 8 in the country in terms of cost savings and efficiencies as it relates to running our program. And number 10 relates to, we're the state that has we're in the top 10 in terms of the largest percentage of locations that are going to receive fiber connectivity. Like, I know David and the folks at AT&T are not going to build and connect folks with fixed wireless. It's all fiber. And I would imagine a significant majority, if not all, especially in rural areas, are going to be buried infrastructure. That's a really important number, right? From a resilience perspective, but also from an efficiency perspective, because the last thing we want to do is invest a bunch of technologies in infrastructure, and then storm hits, knocks it out, storm hit, knocks it out, to the point where the ISP, internet service provider, gives up on that community. That, I think, is a catastrophic result. And so there's going to be, folks, 10,000 locations that are the most hardest to reach that, frankly, we've awarded Starlink to provide Starlink equipment, which we're going to pay for, to those locations. Those locations are not going to get fiber, frankly, because the cost of building fiber would have far exceeded $120,000 to get to that house. That is not a, to put it lightly, an efficient use of taxpayer dollars. So for those locations, they're going to get Starlink. So what does really Q1 2026 look like and beyond? There's going to be a bunch of ribbon cuttings, folks, for projects throughout the state. We will have technically 64 groundbreakings that we could start to compete in the first quarter or two of next year. So Vernon Parish, we did a ribbon cutting of a project a couple of weeks ago, connecting over 2,000 households and small businesses. Yesterday was in Vermilion. Tomorrow I'm going to be in Avoyelles for a groundbreaking. Monday I'll be in Crowley for a ribbon cutting. So you're starting to see people start to get connected. You're beginning to see, and this is the gratifying part because we don't purposely seek this out, but we're now getting anecdotes from folks, especially I just got a text from from someone that lives in Montgomery, Louisiana. Anyone know where Montgomery is? Okay, I know you would. Grand Parish, I believe, right? That person, that family was spending $400 a month on cable internet. That person is now spending $120 a month because of what we funded. So that family sent a note to their representative, Rep. Gabe Furman, and said, hey, I just want to let you know that our family is now saving $300 a month, which goes to the bottom line. That's a single family. If you take that and multiply it times 1 million people, okay, you think about the bottom line that's going to generate and the revenue that's going to generate for the state of Louisiana in terms of GDP growth, savings, that money circulating in your economy. That's real stuff, folks. That's affordability. That's investing in great technology. That is going to make a big difference for the folks in Louisiana. So with that, I will stop. I know I've probably gone way too long, but happy to answer any questions. And I hope this was helpful to give you all context.
Monique, good morning. So I want to follow Regent Hickson's approach and start with the kudos, and then I have one question. So on the kudos. So first of all, from a personal perspective, over the last 5 years, you're the most consistent guy I've ever met. You always bring good news. So you mentioned previously the rest of your life. I don't know what you do in the rest of your life, but I hope you're in every meeting that I attend. So thank you for your work. We really appreciate it. You know, it's impactful, as you said, for I think just about every person in our state. So thank you so much. My question is with regard to the $100 million in funding that LDOE had applied for. You mentioned guidelines going forward, what we can do in 26 and so forth. What can BESE and or LDOE do to help that process, make those funds available? Yeah,
look, I would reach out to your contacts at the White House. So folks in intergovernmental affairs within the White House, I would, obviously flag to the governor that these dollars are important. He knows these dollars are important, so we're gonna probably either send a letter or communicate and try to reach out to Secretary Letnick by the end of January. We'll try to get in touch with him at DC Mardi Gras. So the governor and Kyle Ruckert, everyone knows at the governor's office that these dollars are critically important because it's just the impacts that these dollars have when you start to leverage connectivity is imaginable. I could do some back of the envelope math and estimate what I think is going to be impactful in terms of education, outcomes, helping farmers, et cetera, but the impacts are going to be huge. So what I would suggest is just reach out to your own relationships and contacts within Department of Labor, right? Within the Department of Education and folks at the White House, because what's the clear difference is these dollars are actually, you don't have to go back to Congress to say, hey, I need you to allocate $800+ million to Louisiana.
We just
the
need
dollars
released.
are there.
Yeah.
So reinforcing that message that these dollars are critically important, these broadband dollars are critically important to advancing your mission within Board of Regents, BESE, within all of higher ed, within the 2-year community colleges, I think is an awesome thing.
Maybe just one more question. So do you have any appreciation for what that timeline might be, number one? And then number two, are you suggesting we should all attend Washington Mardi Gras? I
can't say the second. I leave it up to you, okay? But DC is a wonderful place to go, but layer up in January, right? So, look, on the timing, you know, the governor's already tasked me with an assignment, which I'll work on. It's a fun assignment, which is to actually work on guidance that will help hopefully accelerate the decision-making at the federal level. So I'm not going to wait until the end of March to complete that work assignment. We're working on it right now, and hopefully we'll have some guidance that we will internally start to distribute probably before Christmas. And then we'll flag that for Commerce. A lot of it will be reflective of the previous work that I've done with all of you guys before June 6th, before we got the policy notice. So a lot of it will be consistent, but if y'all have, like, I know we were going to spend some efforts around STEM education, cybersecurity, there's now AI, obviously, and for BESE, you know, high dosage tutoring. If those things still stick and are valid, then just let me know, because then we'll try to mention that in our.
Yeah, I can confirm that right now. It's confirmed.
Okay.
Thank you. Excuse me, thank you. This is more of a challenge to this collective body than to you, but what I sense is we've only finished half the game. I mean, if we've created a wonderful infrastructure system that allows people to get Facebook and social media and so forth inexpensively, that's great. We're charged with education. So what I'm looking at is the other half of the game. How do we build collectively as a state on the issues revolving around how the internet is used to educate children and grown-ups? How do we finance it? How do we work collectively so that we're not shotgunning our efforts all over the place like we usually do? Again, I think what you've accomplished is wonderful, but it's only half the game. So it's more of a challenge to us to collectively work together to come up with the other half of the puzzle so that we can use what you've done to move the education levels of our kids and our grown-ups to a much higher level.
So, to be brutally honest, the infrastructure part is easy. When I say easy, I'm not saying that flippantly, that it's easy, right? I mean, it's gone through a lot of gyrations, right? But we have a great group of internet service providers. They're actively building. They're going to continue to build over the next couple of years, and that number will go to zero. But to your point, understanding, and this is the unique opportunity for Louisiana versus other states, because I'll tell you, I have conversations with my colleagues in every other state regularly, with some of their chiefs of staff to their governor. A lot of them are struggling on both policy and also on how they can take and frame broadband infrastructure to advance their economic goals as a state. It is an issue. So I think this is another unique opportunity for us to take another bite at the apple in terms of leadership and then really setting the pace for, which all of you have done already, but even hitting the gas even further and setting the pace for other states. Because to your point, I know we're in a education body right here, right? But the impacts of connectivity to address a healthcare challenge is enormous. To help impact farmers is enormous. Small businesses is enormous. So I would just, happy to work with all of you to try to brainstorm. I'm not an educator, right? I don't have the domain expertise that y'all do, but we have these funds available that we're going to continue to fight for. The governor's going to continue to fight for. If we can marry some of your collective thoughts around how we can continue to leverage these dollars to do the kinds of things that you're looking to do as a body, then we're all for it, and we'll make that push.
Thank you.
Verneeth, again, congratulations. You continue to do great work in execution. I have two questions. I'll follow up on your question about education. As you've been a wonderful executor, it would be helpful as you were then still in that space to understand not only what's happening in the U.S., but what's happening around the world. There are other nations that broadcast school on the internet for kids who can't get to school as a solution. And so in other developing nations where they've taken a more creative and plural approach to making sure that education is accessible to all. So your leadership in helping us to benchmark and understand where there are some really innovative things would be helpful in the world that you live in. So we'd appreciate that. And then just that 7%, which is that last most difficult, if we were looking at a heat map, is there a particular area? It's just little onesies and twosies.
They're pockmarked all over the state. There's 7,000, for example, there's 6,700 households, small businesses in Vermilion Parish alone, which we've awarded AT&T to build, I think, 2,500 of those locations that are all over Vermilion. There are areas, heck, there are areas in East Baton Rouge Parish. Okay, there are 3,000 plus locations, households in East Baton Rouge Parish. A lot of it in the northern part of the parish. So that's the challenge, is that it's all over the state, which makes this incredibly unique. It's not just a five parish problem, it's a uniquely 64. But the internet service providers know what they're doing. They're gonna execute, so I have no doubt that they'll connect every single one of those folks over the next 2 years.
Thank you.
Judy Brown Williams is one of those addresses in one of those remote areas of the I just want to call her out. She hits me up. We weren't fortunate to be the provider there, but in rural Claiborne Parish, and when you go down the road, and you turn a little bit. I mean, there are a lot of beautiful rural places in Louisiana, and they too deserve to be connected. But there is a cost associated with that, and beneath, we've been down a lot of those addresses. But Ms. Brown, you're gonna get high-speed internet.
But I think this is also important. So, just to add commentary to what David just said, the way it should work, and it is working, is an internet service provider gets some federal funds to build in an area that's high cost. Okay. They then execute really well on that federal program. We could close out. We've done the technical audits. The work is done. Happily ever after. But oftentimes that internet service provider will then use their own private money to continue to build, because the cost of building to those remaining locations has significantly lowered as a result of federal dollars. And so I know David's done that. I know yesterday the Vermilion Parish sheriff came to our ribbon cutting and said, "Hey, I'm having internet connectivity. Can I talk to Cajun Broadband?" And he was asking me if he needed permission. And I said, "No, that's between y'all, right?" And so what you're going to see are the companies also stepping up, using their own private dollars to continue to build, to continue to connect, even those locations we may have missed. A new subdivision that opens up in the next 2 years. I mean, there's going to be a lot of subdivisions opening up in Richland Parish all of a sudden, right? So all these internet service providers will continue to use their private dollars to build and connect folks in those areas.
Any other questions? Oh.
Thank you. First of all, Vineeth, just a question to satisfy my curiosity. So I typically prefer, and probably most people do in our state, for anything that has to be essentially hardwired for it to be buried. And you mentioned roughly 80% would be buried. I'm just curious, on the remaining 20%, is that like due to bodies of water or something like that?
Either bodies of water, or someone needs an Army Corps of Engineers permit, or something where it's really complex, right? There's that one house that's on that lake that we still have to serve that might be inhabited only 6 months out of the year. It just doesn't make sense to necessarily bury that infrastructure. That number could go higher. I mean, I say conservatively 80%, but that number could go higher.
Yeah,
I mean, it largely, and we'll know a lot more as we start to really understand the network and how these companies are building these networks.
Yeah, obviously with our weather patterns, it's just helpful.
Right, I agree 100%, I agree.
So I too want to say thank you. You've been a great partner. It's pretty incredible to think, and I remember those initial conversations around getting all of this started, and it's pretty incredible to think, even with all the academic work that we all do, the fact that these two bodies have contributed to the infrastructure of the state of Louisiana in such a meaningful way via your office and your leadership. So I just want to say thank you to you, but also to these two bodies making important financial decisions here today. I guess my question is around, is there anything more formal that might be helpful? And I hate to talk out in front of my board, but I think it's okay. Is there anything more formal that we could recommend to our board in the terms of a resolution to maybe urge and request, whether it's ed or whether it's labor, to take some specific action? Would that be helpful in some way if our board, for instance, passed some type of urge and request resolution asking these bodies to act in favor of what you and the governor and all of us are trying to accomplish?
I would say yes. I mean, from our perspective, from the governor's perspective, he has tasked us, at least our office, to do a student body left to really continue to make the positive argument to the White House and to the Department of Commerce, Secretary Lutnick, that these dollars are critically important, should not be sent back to DC, but rather these dollars should be kept in the state for states to use on how they see fit within certain guidelines, right? And I think the challenge in the previous administration was that those guidelines were a little bit fuzzy. And so what we want to do, what the governor's tasked us to do, is sort of hem this in, but to focus on, again, policies that are critically important that you guys have been working on previous to June 6th, but now continue to push for, right? So, yeah, I mean, I think any and all of the above would be also good, because it also signal to other states that, hey, if BESE and the Board of Regents are doing this in Louisiana, maybe it's a signal to their equivalent of BESEs in the Board of Regents in other states to do the same.
And so if that were to come about, which agencies or individuals would you suggest that they be directed towards?
Commerce.
And Secretary Lutnick?
Secretary Lutnick. I mean, of course, I would make sure that your counterparts at the Department of Labor and Education are aware of that. Even in the Department of Health, right? HSS, we've had Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has talked about the importance of telehealth in the areas where there's a primary care shortage gap, right? In order to facilitate telehealth, what do you need? Connectivity, right? So I think I've talked to Secretary Greenstein about that as well.
And just for the policymakers in the room, I'll share with you on the K-12 side, our piece of that funding would be directed in a couple of different areas. One of those would be the tutoring efforts that we have in place during the school day, our Accelerate tutoring model, which I think has been really helpful. The second piece is to Regent Sterling's point. The process we have in the state where school systems can enter into collaborative endeavor agreements and share teachers across districts and give students access to courses they otherwise may not have access to. And then the other piece for us really is the AI space. And we have initial pilots in the field, and we're gathering data on the effectiveness of those and trying to take more of those to scale should this funding be available. So to echo Mr. Morris's, the answer clearly is yes, that we are still committed to those things. And so that's why I think it's important that we do what we can do. And of course, I know you're working with the governor and you guys are on top of that, but doing what we can do to continue to push forward to make sure that we can secure the funds because they're already available.
Correct. It's double. Yeah. I mean, David might know a little bit better, but it's typically double, if not more, to bury it. In most cases.
In most cases, yes. That's a good number. And we have a good relationship with our electric utility providers in terms of working with them. We have regulated pole attachment fees and we have things like that. So but it does vary. In terms of access, and when we bury, in many cases, we have to pull permits and additional things that also going to drive up costs. And that in and of itself has been a challenge.
Well, that's why, we identified 10,000 households that, locations that are going to get Starlink, because it's just the cost of connecting that household with either aerial fiber or underground infrastructure was just too much. So we'll just get them Starlink equipment in the second quarter of next year.
But I just wanted to, at least my comments, and he's referenced me a few times. It has been a great experience. We've learned a lot. Historically, at least our company, that wasn't something, utilizing government dollars. Even the early days, they had other programs, and we opted out of it. But I remember being in the Capitol when that idea came up about should we establish a broadband office. And, I personally believe that, government should shrink a little bit. But in this case, it was important for us to have a singular operation that really helped us to coalesce all these providers and everybody together, policymakers. And Vineet, his team is very small. And so when people say a government agency, a small team can't make a big impact, they've demonstrated that. So much so that Arkansas poached one of his top, deputies to go and lead the efforts over there. So we do great things when we resource it, when we work together collaboratively. Policymakers, private sector work together. But I want to commend you for the work. It hadn't always been good. We've had those bumps along the way. We're dealing with a lot of municipalities who see in all this activity, who want to put additional fees on your bills and do all those things, and we're working together to try to mitigate those kinds of challenges that we experience. But Vineet, I want to publicly commend you and say, we really appreciated your leadership, and we're looking forward to the next phase of getting it done.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I want to join the choir in thanking Vineet for his fantastic work. I also want to just reflect a bit on the conversation that Kate and I had at the time during the pandemic. You all know how challenging it was to keep education moving forward and our commitment to do that. And so when we had an opportunity to work together with the governor's office to say these are where the stimulus dollars should go, and our big goal should be to erase the digital divide. That was the mission for us, and that is why we asked for these dollars to be submitted in that way. It was a huge goal. We knew that we needed to do something to make sure that we could keep students, whether they were kindergartners or college students or students pursuing career technical education, some way to make sure there was consistent, high-quality education happening in every community. And when students were sent home, that they didn't have to drive to McDonald's or to a bus that was parked that had a hotspot. That was the goal. And Vineet understood the mission and got the work done. And Conrad, to your point, it's not all done, right? The infrastructure is critical, but we've done pilots around digital navigators. We understand that these non-deployment dollars can help us improve Main Street and the health care of our communities and the education of our communities. And so I do absolutely want to say, Vineet, we're grateful for your continued work. I know you'll write some really strong guidance, and we're going to stand with you to try to get this work done. But it took, right, an all-state approach to get the work done and to keep the work moving forward. And we're immensely proud of the amazing work you have done with a very small team, but a committed, focused team that has been fearless in trying to get this vision to reality. So thank you very much for your good work.
Really appreciate it. I remember, I think it's a great story. It's a great government. It's a great people recognizing a problem, right, at its element. Legislators then creating our office, y'all funding it, and then the ISPs executing, right? I mean, we're legislatively capped, folks, to having only 4 people in our office. 1. We have the lowest admin fees of any state in how we execute the program. And I think y'all committed $1.5 million over 3 years when we got started. And we said, okay. I remember meeting you, Kaden, back in 21, and you're like, is this sufficient? And I said, we'll make do with what we have. And then let's start working. So we're grateful. And so this is a big win. But to your point, it's not a mission accomplished. We still have work to do on the infrastructure side. And then the key will be how we leverage those funds to advance Louisiana's competitive and economic interests.
We're all done with questions. I also want to chime in beneath and give you great accolades after watching you back up and punt and take all the work that you have put in and have to redo it and resubmit it. Your attitude and your perseverance have gotten us where we are today, and thank you so much for that.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and we'll see you on the other side.
Absolutely. Looking forward to more good news.
Absolutely.
And before we move on to our next item, I'll hand it over to our BESE president, President Ronnie Morris, for a few comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Vineeth, again for a great presentation. Always good news from you, so looking forward to your next presentation. They give me a couple of minutes here just to share a little information, a little AI update. I think it's challenging nowadays if you're not in a conversation where AI is not part of the conversation. It seems to be regular now. So I wanted to go back to our last joint meeting. It just really stuck with me, Regent Hickson's comments. He was really very passionate about his experience in Louisiana for sort of a change in the paradigm to really more appreciation for a competitive spirit. And in Louisiana, sort of waking up and realizing that, hey, we can be competitors and we can be winners in business and industry and education and so forth. So I really appreciate his comments then, and then have a really good example to share with you guys. In mid-December, the U.S. Department of Education released a grant opportunity, but it had a very small window. It was 22 days to respond. And the folks in this room that have had any experience in responding to these grants, what it takes to put these packages together and whatnot, it's not a check-the-box exercise. So they had 22 days to respond. This was a $50 million opportunity to provide AI education to our students. It was open to higher education institutions throughout the country. And so I'm aware of 6 universities from Louisiana that worked over the Thanksgiving holidays in that spirit of competitiveness to submit applications. So I wanted to just take a second and recognize those 6 institutions. This particular grant was a discretionary grant through FIPSE, which is the Fund for Improvement of Post-Secondary Education. It was a special project grant. And again, it included several opportunities to expand the use of AI technology in education. I understand that Tulane University, University of Louisiana at Lafayette, Louisiana Tech University, Southeastern Louisiana University, Louisiana State University, and the University of New Orleans all submitted applications in a timely manner. So I look forward to hearing about those outcomes. Those announcements will be made prior to December 31st. So we should get that news very soon. Personally, I wanted to thank President Henderson from Louisiana Tech, Ashley Townsend from LDOE, and Dr. Lindsay Vincent, also from Louisiana Tech, who helped me as we work with those institutions on those efforts. So again, just kudos to those folks, and again, that competitive spirit that we seem to see again and again. And also, Regent Aubrey, you recognized earlier the spirit of collaboration. So I think that's the key. Just want to recognize those folks and just hope we can continue with this good work. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, President Morris. We look forward to learning more as we learn more about AI and how that works into our world, it's an ever-changing world. Another area of close collaboration for us is dual enrollment, as we focus on increasing the numbers of high school students who are starting their college journey early. I would like to ask Dr. Tristan Denley and Dr. Ernest Singleton, Assistant Superintendent of Career and College Readiness, to present an update regarding Louisiana's dual enrollment.
Thanks so much. So hopefully the theme of good news to share will continue for a few moments more. So first of all, what I wanted to do is just to spend a few minutes giving really my sort of annual update on where we are as a state on our 2030 goal and our goals that we share together. Many of you who have been on the board or the boards for a little while know that the Board of Regents back in 2019 set out a goal that by 2030, at least 60% of the adult population in the state of Louisiana would have some credential past high school. I know I don't need to persuade you that today having only a high school diploma is really not enough in today's economy to be able to sustainably support yourself and your family. And so getting that credential of value is a critical piece of enabling people to be able to change the story of their family, to change the future of their community. And so reaching that 60% goal is just enormously crucial. When we began the work, the educational attainment rate here in Louisiana was in the sort of the mid to high 40s. We are today at 52.5%. This is the highest that percentage has ever been here in the state of Louisiana. It's about 1.5% higher today than it was a year ago when I spoke to you about our progress. And this is the charting along the way. And you can see it's not been a smooth ride. And you can, if you've been here in Louisiana, then you can imagine why it is that it's not been a smooth ride over those years. Yes, sir.
I know that we're all professional, and that this is that type of setting, but that is an all-time high. I think it's okay that we clap for that. Okay, I'm just letting y'all know. Okay?
Thank you, sir. Yeah, so the 52.5 you can see is it's not just a high on the temporary basis, it is an all-time high. It's very much a historical moment. And you can see more than that. Last year, when I spoke to you, we were kind of approaching being on track to get to that 60% goal. We are now absolutely on track, in fact, on track to exceed that 60% goal in 2030. I've said often that for Louisiana, this is not an aspiration, it is a destination. It is just like Vineeth's zero slide, this is the same thing. It is a matter of time. We will be there in 2030. I also want to make sure that we take account of just the impact of that work, just as we have all morning. Each 1% increase is around 23,000 people here in the state. So, it's not one of those percentages where a point here, a point there, yeah, whatever. A point here, a point there is 23,000 people. From the bottom of that blue up to the top of that blue, that's a packed house at Tiger Stadium now, more people who have a credential of value that didn't have it before. That's a big deal. And as I say, so many of those people are first-generation students, very unlikely to be last-generation students. So this is changing the whole story of life here in Louisiana. The strategies to get there haven't just, sir. Thank you. We really appreciate it. As you say, it is an all hands on deck amount of work. The strategies that are involved in this, we could spend the rest of the day talking about all of the different strands of work that are involved. It is recognizing all of the credentials of value. It's not just about degrees and diplomas, but also certificates and industry-based certifications and short-term workforce credentials and all of those pieces. And so building the infrastructure to deliver those, count those, recognize those is important. Similarly, on the other end is increasing college going, because the reality is that we were on a steady decline here in Louisiana for college going right out of high school and also for adults. And so, again, some of the stories we're going to tell today are about turning that hockey stick around and changing that course. And similarly, the work that we've been doing to increase those completion rates. It is a tragedy when people begin higher education a journey to try to get that credential of value, and it doesn't work out and they falter along the way. It is a tragedy. And so we need to do, and have tried to do, everything that we can to mitigate that and to make that really unlikely. So really the rest of what we want to talk about today here is what are we doing to increase that college going, because the work that we're trying to do together around dual enrollment was a deliberate strategy to try to enable people to see that by beginning collegiate level work as part of their high school experience would make it much more likely that either they would earn a credential right there in high school, and we'll see that increasing numbers of people are doing that, but also that they would see that they sure enough could do collegiate level work, be that in CTE or in academic side, and that would make it more likely that they would continue to some kind of college experience after. So that's the news to share, and I'm going to hand over to Ernest to do that.
Well, good morning, everyone. Ernest Singleton. And so as Tristan stated, we have seen an increase across the board, as well as with the dual enrollment trends that have occurred since 2018-19. We've had a 55% increase in the number of students participating in dual enrollment, with a record 43,000 participating in 24-25. And so we just want to make sure that you all understand that we are continuing to make progress toward our goal, which Tristan stated was that students are earning early college credit. And by 2029, every student graduates with a high school, with college credit, either academic, career and technical, or a post-secondary credential of value. So we have just continued to implement various strategies to reach that particular goal. And that we also see an increase of students earning that early college credit. You can see that we had a dip, of course, in 2020, but since then we've had a steady rise all the way up to the class of 2024, earning that higher percent as we did from each year.
Thank you. Yeah, so to give you a little bit more information under the hood, you can see that increase to 43,000, that was again an increase over the previous year. We've seen steady double-digit percentage increases up until last year. Last year it was still a decent increase, but not quite at the same pace. But you can see those increases system by system. The one place where we still need to do work together is around CTE. That it has stayed pretty close, around 18, 19, 20% of the students who are enrolled in dual enrollment being part of CTE, and roughly in the 80% who are on the academic side. We are digging into this number really deeply to try to understand what is really going on a detailed basis. We know that the downturn last year was largely due to two very large CTE providers across the state, two community colleges seeing a change in their enrollment, and that explains that slight downturn. My office is just recently actually really digging in to see, as we look at this, it's very important, I think, going back to my earlier slide, we want to make sure that we recognize all credentials of value. And so this number, 18%, recognizes credit-bearing dual enrollment in a CTE space with our community and technical colleges and our universities. It doesn't contain industry-based certification, short-term workforce credentials, because, again, those things are not, strictly speaking, in the dual enrollment space. We have reason to imagine that what we are also seeing underneath the hood is sort of a change in the way in which high schools and colleges are working together, that maybe fewer students are taking CTE in that dual enrollment mode, but are instead taking CTE in that industry-based certification and short-term workforce credential mode. Does that make sense? So more to come on this, but the reality is you need to know that we are committed to doubling down on understanding that and the dynamics that we can do. It is the case that I can share some good news from the legislature last year. We were able to get legislative change around TOPS Tech Early Start, which is a scholarship program that provides scholarships for students taking dual enrollment CTE courses. That change now means that any student who is eligible for a dual enrollment CTE course is eligible for that scholarship from the legislature. So that's good news, and again, we expect that to have an impact on increasing the exposure to CTE.
So
So we've instituted several policy changes with regards to making sure that students have increased access to dual enrollment. So they can, we've updated the minimum admission standards, now having early college credit as a pathway to admission into four-year universities, as well as the universal transfer pathways. We've increased communications related to dual enrollment. We have the ladualenrollment.com. We've piloted a common application for dual enrollment, Apply DE, which is currently being piloted by 3 institutions, SUELA, SOLACC, and LSU A&M. We've also fully launched into our instructor credentialing program at LSU with dual enrollment instructors getting credentials in math, as well as LSUS with dual enrollment instructors getting credentials in English. And we have over 24 students taking advantage of this tuition with tuition waivers, and it will be added to the pipeline of dual enrollment instructors in Louisiana. And last but certainly not least, the Dual Enrollment Task Force. The task force has anchored the way for key strategies of this work and continues to convene around the state with its last meeting at COTC. We look forward to the work continuing and the release of the annual report in February. And so that concludes our informational report. Chair Cordell.
President Morris, you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have, thank you guys for the update also. Again, just more and more good news. You know, we need to schedule more of these meetings. But it's always encouraging to go to legislators with good news and data to support the story, right? So you guys have a lot of good news coming out of this meeting and some solid data, right, to support it across the board. So my question is specific to dual enrollment and funding. Do we have a funding constraint right now for dual enrollment? Any student that's interested, is there any funding constraints right now? Is it adequately funded? And if not, what should we be talking to legislators about?
Yeah, so maybe we can tag team on this. So the reality is that the picture around funding is very fragmented across the state and really always has been. So there are districts where the district or the institute, the high school pays for the student to take that dual enrollment course. There are places where others are funding that. There are places where to take that high school dual enrollment course, the parents need to pay, and everything in between. The price for taking that dual enrollment course varies course to course, as well as institution to institution and high school to high school. So it is very much fragmented. We have had long ongoing conversations with all partners to really try to breathe some level of consistency into that space. And certainly as part of our legislative ask at least the last 2 years, maybe even the last 3, we have proposed a framework for legislative funding, which would allow every high school student in the state as a junior or a senior to take at least 2 dual enrollment courses without cost to them. And as you might imagine, given the inconsistency of the way in which the cost is borne right now, it matters a lot where you are in the state, what school you go to, what your family background is, all of that, as to whether or not this opportunity exists. So that's the bottom line of it. Certainly, we would very much welcome, as exists in many states in the country, an intentional dual enrollment funded strategy that would allow students to be able to access dual enrollment in a consistent basis as part of their high school experience.
So that's the story. I just want to get clarification on the ask. Is the current ask going into this session that every student be allowed to take funding be available for every student to take 2 classes? Is that the ask going in, or is the ask just across the board unlimited access?
I believe, I'm just trying to look for Elizabeth, I believe the request that was submitted by the Board of Regents was $20 million to fund a program that would allow high school seniors, juniors and seniors to have access to dual enrollment at no cost to their family. So we have a request into the Division of Administration, the Governor's Office, to do that.
Great. So that's on the table right now.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Appreciate your support.
You got it, 100%.
it's the season of giving, right? So this is what we.
Any other questions?
So, there was a story in the Wall Street Journal last week concerning the University of Southern California, USC, and I'm going by memory, so please forgive me if I quote some of the numbers incorrectly. But as I recall, the story revolved around the fact that some 40 to 45% of students were unprepared even at the middle school level of math. Perhaps you read the story. And the story attributed that to two things. It was they had dropped the ACT at some time ago, and that the lower schools, the feeder schools, had lowered the bar basically on accountability and standards. So my question is, do we maintain data on remediation in our institutions, and how does that relate back to entering students and completing students? In other words, it would help us in our messaging to know, even though we're making great strides in Louisiana, how important it is to those going on to four-year institutions or two-year institutions, that they're prepared when they enter, and how much remediation and how much of the cost of that remediation for those students, and how many of them drop out, frankly, because they're underprepared. So I'm just curious if we have that kind of data.
So we do have that kind of data. Thanks so much for the question. So first of all, when it comes to the import and the importance of success in those critical courses, so we've actually done a structural analysis of the curriculum in higher education. Broadly speaking, the way in which the curriculum unfolds shows that there are particular learning objectives, particular courses where success in those courses leads on to much greater success across the curriculum, not just passing that course with a better grade, but actually having a much higher likelihood of passing and earning the credential that you're seeking to earn. And conversely, lack of success in those courses does exactly the opposite, rips everything apart. It turns out that English and math are the Kevin Bacon of curriculum. They are right at the very heart of everything that we do, and that's really true in a technical sense, in a really odd way that I can explain to you later. So success in English and math is utterly crucial. The graduation rates the Regent David referred to earlier, students in Louisiana, if they pass freshman math, freshman English in their first academic year, are about 7 or 8 times more likely to graduate than their colleagues who do not pass English and math in their first academic year. So it's utterly crucial. All right, so does preparation matter? Yes, it does. But structure matters too. And so again, up until relatively recently in this state, so up until 2023, the way that we approached remediation at the 2- and 4-year institutions was that students who came to us lacking preparation in those math and English courses, they were put into a standalone developmental course, and intermediate algebra course, developmental English course, sometimes a sequence of those courses to try to put right that remediation, put right that lack of preparation. And we analyzed the numbers. The success rates of those students in ever passing a math class was 11%. And the success rate of them ever passing an English course was a little better. It was 12%. Now, I don't need to convince you that's not what student success looks like. And so there is a new model to improve that. It's called the co-requisite model. I've had the privilege of leading, implementing the co-requisite model in 2 other states before, in Tennessee and in Georgia, and very happy to say that here in Louisiana now, in 2023, we fully implemented the co-requisite model in math, and now last year in 2024, we fully implemented the co-requisite model in English. The success rates last year in math and English were not that 11 or 12. They were 55% in math and 60% in English. So a very substantial improvement, very substantial increase. Yeah. And this is a testimony to thousands of faculty members taking an enormous amount of effort to undo the structure of the way that they've approached teaching math and English in the past, it's an all-campus kind of affair. It's not just in the classroom. It's changing financial aid, advising, all kinds of things. But those, we're not sitting on our laurels with that five-fold increase in success. Actually, just last week, we had another of our prerequisite academies where we brought together faculty from all across the state to listen to and explore strategies from across the country. So we're looking for those numbers to further increase. But you can imagine the impact that is going to have, not today, but on down the road on our ongoing success rates because of that. Now, nothing about that says we also shouldn't strive to make sure that people are more prepared when they come to college. And so again, a really big thank you to the team at the Department of Education who have been part of the Launch Years project, which is really, again, using national expertise to rethink the whole structure of the mathematics standards along the way, from pre-K all the way through to high school. Because again, by realigning those standards to make sure that everyone today is learning the mathematics that they need to be able to succeed in understanding the mathematics that's pertinent to their discipline, that's utterly crucial. And again, so a big thank you to the work of the team there at U.S. Department, the Louisiana Department of Ed.
But do we have data on the numbers of kids that enter college that require remediation? In other words, you're talking about the numbers that come out of remediation, and that's great. But I'm talking about the numbers that are required to enter remediation.
So as things currently stand, as you might imagine, the numbers who are entering remediation has been roughly constant. But over time, we would expect it to gradually decline because of the changes that we're making.
Well, I can tell you that politically, we're constantly, BESE and DOE is constantly under attack for holding up high standards and holding up high accountability levels. So it's important for us that we keep selling the message that we just can't tolerate large numbers of people going forward into college unprepared to enter college. That's the message.
Senator Pell, the last number I saw was 45%. Maybe Dr. Denley has an update, but the last number I saw was 45% remediation rate in math.
Yeah, I don't have a percentage in my head.
It would be interesting to know if we could get those numbers. It would just help us in our messaging.
Oh, yeah, we
say,
can
look, this is why it's so important to hold up standards and hold up accountability.
Oh, thank you. I just want to jump on this bandwagon for a moment. I read the story too, Conrad, and it was affirming to me in knowing that in working with, and with the support rather, of Commissioner Reed and her team and Regents, BESE took action to raise expectations in the high schools. And BESE took a position that college readiness and even career readiness means that students need to be able to read and do math. And so we are oftentimes under political attack for lifting that standard and holding expectation, but we have to do better than a third of students exiting high schools proficient in core content academic areas. And so every time that we have raised the expectation, the school systems and individual schools and educators have met the mark. And so with the work that we work together on with raising the expectations on the refined accountability system, I am completely confident that we will see core academic proficiency increase in high schools across the state of Louisiana, and it will lead to better prepared students entering college on day one, and not just entering on day one, but the stick-with-itness to persevere beyond that first year.
That's right.
So the importance, is that higher ed makes that message clear to the political leaders of this state, the significance of having people, just what Dr. Brumley was talking about, ready to go to college, because at the end of the day, if they're not ready to go to college, a lot of them drop out or spend enormous amounts of time getting a degree, or getting a degree that's not worth anything in the marketplace. So we need higher ed's help to help us with that message.
Yeah, and just to double down on it even further, just to clarify, when we say go to college, yes, that might look like a 4-year degree, but it also might look like a 2-year associate degree or a diploma, or it might look like an NCCR credential in carpentry where, actually knowing the geometry of having to build that thing may actually be really important. So that mathematics is just as pertinent across all kinds of careers today. That's right. No, thank you.
And I do want to commend all the work that you do, and also the conversation that we've had, to your point, Mr. Appel, is to make sure that when students go to school, that the goal is to get out and get a job. And to find your spot in the workplace, be that through a 4-year degree, 2-year degree, or a credential. There are so many opportunities. And the fact that we are talking about those more, and that our conversations are leaning more toward that, and the work, coupled with the work that you guys are doing, we're on the right track, I believe, in this state. So thanks to everybody working together and rowing the boat all in the same direction. Thank you so much for your comments and your presentation, Dr. Denley and Dr. Stingleton. Next on our agenda is an update on 2 topics from our meeting in August. To provide an update on the task force on career alignment, we again will hear from Dr. Tristan Denley.
All right. Thank you so much. So, there we go. So first of all, wanted to share an update about our work when it comes to our task force on career alignment. This work was based on some legislation, a Senate concurrent resolution that was carried by Senator Edmonds, and we certainly want to thank him very much for his support and championing this work, which was really recognizing how crucial it is that across our 2- and 4-year institutions that we really, in a very intentional way, understand our responsibility when it comes to helping students to know, well, what do you do after you complete this credential of value? So recognizing how important it is, yes, for these students to earn this credential of value, but also to make the connections of value that enable them to see, oh, this is what it is that I do connects with what it is that I might do next. And to do that early, not to do it as a sort of an afterthought or now I'm just about to graduate a couple of months from now, let me go down to the careers office and see what happens, but instead to be much more strategic and intentional. And so as you can see, that Senate Concurrent Resolution 38 of last year's session asked our institutions, it created a task force, in many ways a task force inspired by the impact of the dual enrollment task force, to come together and really take a good hard look at what it was that our institutions were currently doing, what they might do, what the best established evidence-based practices are across the nation, and how we could implement them. So when we did that, we have now met 4 times since that time. The first time we brought people together from across the state and asked them to really, in many ways, to envisage what this might look like. What would this look like from the perspective of employers, or from economic development officers, or from certainly there's K-12 representation and representation from all of our 4 systems. We have students who are part of that panel as well, and so we asked them for what that might look like. The second meeting, we asked employers to specifically tell us, well, what does it look like from your side of the fence? What does this all look like from your perspective, and how might we be able to much better serve and connect with what your needs are? And then the third meeting that we had, we spoke with the people who are currently doing the career coaching and advising on those campuses. What does life look like from their perspective? And in many ways, what we heard from them is that students are often using the career center like they use the student health center. That they go if they need it, and if they don't feel like they need it, they don't go. And sometimes people who really should need it don't go, and all the parallels, I think, really hold out. And so where we are is now we are just in the midst of drafting an interim report, which will be submitted to the legislature in the middle of January of next year. And that interim report, of course, as you might imagine, gives some more subtle details about everything that I've just said, and sort of moment by moment, blow by blow about what we talked about and when we met and who came and all of those things. But I think much more importantly, it sets out a roadway, a pathway for us to follow this coming year. What are we going to do now to, on the one hand, understand how we might implement strategies, very much in the spirit of the kinds of things that we've done around dual enrollment. What are we going to do to implement those strategies, and what are we going to do to better inform those strategies that we're going to implement? So this is what this looks like. First of all, we are planning to create a playbook, a way for us to help faculty members to understand what can we do to actually significantly broaden the availability of work-based learning as part of the curriculum that we offer. It's already the case across pretty much every campus that if you really want to be part of some kind of work-based learning experience, you can make that happen. But largely speaking, it's sort of an added extra. Well, you could do that if you really want to. It's much harder to make sure that it is embedded within the curriculum of the degree that you're trying to offer if you're not a nurse or a teacher, right? If you're a nurse or a teacher, it's already embedded in what you do. Largely speaking, most other disciplines, it's not that way. It's not that intentional. We actually have 19 programs across the state who are doing the hard work of implementing that change, making those curricular changes, doing all of that to make sure that everyone in those programs has access to work-based learning as an integral part of their experience. But you might imagine it's a very new kind of approach for most faculty, and so creating that playbook and helping them to understand what the challenges are to doing that is part of this strategy. Similarly, as we talked to those who are part of the career advising and counseling and coaching space, on many campuses, they are the only person on that campus. On most campuses, it's a one-person office. For us to do what we're planning to do, clearly you can't hire your way out of this, right? Even if we had 2 people or 3 people, that's still a small number of people. Instead, what we're looking to do is for them to take their expertise and to deliberately implement this across the curriculum, embedded in what faculty are doing, embedding it all across the curriculum in an intentional way. Similarly, we have many work study programs across the state. Work study has been a fixture for a long time. There are ways in which we can think about work study in a very different way to make it itself be a paid internship experience. We need to think through how we do that, and there's some national models to doing that. Clearly, to do any of that, we need to make sure that we really do double down on employer engagement. We need to make sure that we really include employers in those conversations, what it is that we're trying to do, how it is that we're trying to do it, and to strengthen the data flow from us and from them to be able to see exactly where we are. Very hard right now for us to gather meaningful data about how many people have access to work-based learning, internships, co-op experiences, apprenticeships across the state. And lastly, and certainly not least, for us to create a scorecard that allow us to be able to track our progress. You know, part of, as I was listening to Vineeth this morning, part of the secret sauce of what he's done was to create a really true measure of understanding the progress that they have been able to make along the way to know what needs still to be done. It's just as crucial in this work as well. And so that's the overall focus of this work. We certainly will be happy to provide to you the interim report when it goes to the legislature, but certainly we're looking forward to coming to you in the future to see the progress that we're making along this.
I had a question for you, Dr. Denley. I was really excited to hear about your approach for work-based learning being embedded in the curriculum. I've expressed interest at BESE meetings and really excited about working with Superintendent Brumley and his team. How do we do that in K-12 education? You know, in my mind, you know, as we think about how we integrate that into the education process, right, so that you make education relevant for kids. To me, that's really what the core, that's the feedback I get from kids, let's put it that way. How do you make education relevant? And to me, this is how you do it. So I'm really excited that you guys are there in higher ed, and I'm still, in my mind, trying to come to grips with how do you do that in K-12. You know, my thought was, and I think it's still a work in progress in my own mind, but in my thought, you know, if you want to institutionalize something in K-12, then you implement it or you integrate it in your standards, because that's what teachers are expected to present to kids. And so as we think about refreshing those standards once every 7 years, then we look at, you know, how do we dot the I's and cross the T's, get it refreshed, but then the next step would be to help kids to appreciate, well, what's the application for that concept? And then let's go one step beyond that and let's say, well, okay, how do you tie that application to a career pathway? And then let's go one step beyond that, and how do you connect that career pathway with AI? So that we have a full vision for the future workforce and what that's going to look like, and the skills that are required to be competitive, successfully competitive. So when you think about, as you guys are thinking through this concept of a playbook, I think of, you put my instructor hat on, and I don't have, as an education instructor in a math or science or whatever, I'm not really familiar with all these different career pathways and whatnot. They're out of the education space. So can you help me with, at this early stage, what kind of approach are you taking with or do you think about taking with your playbook to help your educators get some perspective out of their typical domain, right? So that you can integrate these career pathways embed them into the curriculum. Do you have any insight you could share with us as far as the approach you guys are thinking about taking?
Yeah, so and really want to echo what you said, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to be able to do this together, for it to be a sort of a seamless pathway between K-12 and higher ed and all of those pieces, and I know that that's part of your vision too. So part of this pathway is sort of nuts and bolts. Part of this pathway is how do you go about making the curricular changes? How do you get those approved by the committee structure on your campus? How do you do this work of enabling students to be able to actually make what they do, connect what it is that they're doing as part of this work-based learning experience, actually an integral part of the curriculum that they're learning, and not just kind of that too. So pieces of that. What we also see is how crucial it is that people are making the connections not only in a learning sense, but in a personal sense. We want people to have those networking experiences so that they can actually make connections with potential employers here in the state, because we know that is that's the secret sauce of making sure that people not only make good on the credential that they earn past graduation, but they make good on the credential that they earn here in Louisiana, as opposed to in one of the other 49 states or somewhere else. And so all of those pieces are really part of the integral model that we're trying to implement, that it is not just about doing stuff in another space, but it is deliberately and with intention making those curricular connections, embedding it in the curriculum in an intentional way, and allowing people to have that networking experience that help them to make the connections with potential employers afterwards. Yeah. No, thank you.
All right, now as we're thinking about our education to career pipelines, perfect timing, we're also looking specifically at our educators with our tri-agency teacher apprenticeship initiative. To provide an update at this work, I'd like to call Dr. Susanna Craig and Dr. Arthur Jafrian, Deputy Assistant Superintendent of Educator Talent and Workforce Development at LDOE.
Great. Today, we just wanted to provide an update for you about the work that we've been doing. We also have with us today Deputy Secretary of Louisiana Works, Osmar Padilla, with us today to talk about the work that we've been doing. Our teams have been meeting. This tri-agency work is very important to each of our agencies, that we solve for this teacher shortage crisis. And one of the ways that we think that we can do this is by focusing on that what you've said, work-based learning, that year-long residency, that all of our students who are in their residency program in our four-year institutions, that initial certification program are at our institutions, and they are committing a year of study while they are teaching in our schools. And so we together are creating a statewide strategy to create these registered teacher apprenticeship programs. This initiative, it addresses our need, Louisiana's need for additional qualified teachers, and the growing challenge that we have for retaining our teachers. We've got multiple pathways into the teacher profession, but we know that those students who go through a four-year program and spend a year-long a year-long of training in our classrooms under the guide of a mentor are the ones who are, and I think Art has Dr. Joe Freon has some stats to tell you about those teachers actually staying in our programs longer. Traditional pathways into teaching are more expensive, and those students who are in teaching are not only committing a year long of teaching, but they are paying tuition that year. And so we're working on ways to help assist that. Osmar, I don't know if you want to add anything. I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Honestly, I mean, this is obviously both from a workforce and an economic development imperative, right, that we get this right. And so that's from our perspective why we're very much keen to figure out, there were questions asked about funding and things of that nature. How do we demystify the kind of funding infrastructure around the state, as well as the potential barriers that to create apprenticeship programs, particularly in teacher pathways. And so, no, we're just very much in support of this work and have been kind of attached at the hip and working at it.
Thank you.
Arthur Joe Freon with the department. Happy to be here with you all this morning to share some of the amazing work that we are doing as a group considered the Tri-Agency Work Group. So what Dr. Craig alluded to earlier is that those individuals who participate in the traditional preparation program actually are retained. We currently lose about 20% of our first-year teachers, meaning we retain about 80% of those. That number significantly increases when the individuals are traditionally prepared. So the graphic that you see on the slide deck shows much of the work that the Teacher Retention, Recovery, Recruitment Task Force did along with BESE, as well as the Louisiana Department of Education and the Board of Regents, to expand policy and opportunities for teachers to enter the workforce. And while we gladly take our alternately prepared, those who are post-baccalaureately prepared, to become educators, what we want to do is specifically focus on those in the traditional programs through what we call the teacher apprenticeship. Policy already mandates that these individuals participate in a year-long residency. The residency not only impacts the teacher, but it improves the outcomes for local school systems as well. So the benefit for the resident is that it creates a lower cost option for individuals to obtain their certification. Their final 2 semesters would be paid as a paraprofessional within the school system and receive all of the benefits as well as insurance and pay into the teacher retirement system. So that is a significant benefit for the individual. It also creates stronger system and school ties for that individual. And in essence, they are guaranteed employment in the school system where they are doing their resident year. We know that during the resident year, individuals become very attached to the school and to the school system. And if we can afford them that opportunity, they are more likely to remain in that school system. And we increase the opportunity and chances that they are going to remain in the profession. It also provides positive impacts for the state and the schools. It expands the high-quality pathways into teaching, and it creates a stronger workforce. It increases teacher recruitment and retention in a positive way. It creates stronger alignment of teacher training and workforce needs. And ultimately, we would love to see teaching become one of the high-wage, high-need areas that are identified by Louisiana Works. It also improves student outcomes through a well-prepared teacher workforce. And so while all of these pathways that this illustration beautifully presents to you, this work group is specifically focused on the outcome of traditionally prepared educators by identifying these individuals as teacher apprentices. And we are currently successfully piloting this with 4 teacher apprentices all through Southeastern, as well as the Tangipahoa Parish School System.
So the work continues, and we've had multiple meetings, as well as we've had our very first face-to-face meeting, and the work continues. Thank you.
All right, members, this next item is an action item requiring a vote. I asked Dr. Tristan Denley and Dr. Anise Singleton to present a report regarding computer science courses that are equivalent to TOPS University core curriculum requirements.
Good morning again. We are here to bring to you a set of courses that will be applicable to the TOPS University Diploma. It will expand the course offerings within the mathematics and natural science categories of the TOPS core curriculum. Many computer science courses, concepts like sequencing, patterns, and logic align with math and science reasoning. Strategies such as decomposition and algorithms support problem solving across these fields. Incorporating computer science into these areas helps students see connections and view technology as a tool for solving real-world problems. We have requested additions to the TOPS core curriculum in mathematics and science. Mathematics options include statistical reasoning, introduction to computational thinking, data science, and quantitative reasoning. Natural science options include AP Computer Science Principles, Computer Science 1, Computer Science 2, Data Manipulation, Analysis, and Modeling and Simulation. Please note that all of these particular courses will meet the graduation requirement that our grade 9 students entering 27-28 will have to have in order to graduate. Additionally, courses such as data science or modeling and simulation give students the potential to engage with AI or other industry-relevant technologies used in today's rapidly changing job market. The LDOE will be creating more detailed course descriptions for each of these proposed courses that include key concepts from the computer science standards. We will continue to vet materials and connect approved materials to appropriate course descriptions in an effort to guide our school systems as they choose materials for student use.
Thanks so much. Yeah, so Board of Regents and LDOE staff request that the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education and Board of Regents review and approve the specified courses for inclusion in the TOPS and BOR core as options for completion of the math and science requirements, specifically for students entering grade 9 this year, 25-26, and graduating in 2031 or later. The courses will be eligible for meeting TOPS Opportunity Performance, Honors, or Excellence Award requirements. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Denley and Dr. Singleton. You've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve the specified courses for inclusion in the TOPS and Board of Regents core? Seconded and so moved by multiple people. Is there any further discussion? Any questions or objections? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you very much. I'm going to hand it over now to our Commissioner, Kim Hunter-Reid. Our closing remarks first is going to be by Dr. Bromley, followed by Dr. Reid.
Thank you. Thank you. I tried to assign my proxy to Commissioner Reid, but she refused. Literally, she just refused. Look, I just want to thank everyone for all of their support. The Commissioner and I, as you all know, meet monthly and try to talk about ways that we can improve across this entire space. And as you've seen today, a number of endeavors are showing that we are doing such things, and that's not possible without all of your support as policymakers and leaders throughout the state. So I just want to extend my thank you to all of you and wish you all a very Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Kate. I would say ditto. We certainly appreciate the collaboration. I love that we have a pop-up banner that says "We collaborate." Right? It is what we do. It is who we are. We are deeply committed to education and making sure there are more opportunities in our state than ever before. So in addition to thanking our boards for the work and certainly our board chairs and my great partner, Kate, I want to join Kate in thanking the staff. We have phenomenal staff who are working hard each and every day and working collaboratively. I also want to thank the Governor's Senior Education Policy Advisor, Dr. Saber Kingham, who is here with us. She literally is behind me. She always has my back. So I appreciate that because it takes a strong team to have a focus on moving education forward. Not easy, but so very important. And we have a strong team. So I'm very grateful for that. And Madam Chair, turn it back to you.
Thank you both, and to echo the teamwork, it just talking with President Morris, we're moving the needle and we're moving it in the right direction, and it is definitely a result of everybody working together. And thanks so much to every one of you that you get paid so much to show up here and dedicate your time, and it really is making our state better. So we appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you both for your presentation, Dr. Brumley and Dr. Reed. Is there any other business to come before the joint boards that we need to know about?
Not business. I do have a question for Dr. Brumley. You know, I saw the recent school performance scores, all the grades and things, and then there was another article that came out subsequent saying that things will be changing for next year. And we see dual enrollment. We see a lot of these teacher apprenticeship. We see the broadband. We're moving in a direction. We've gotten all our states education performance. I mean, everything is moving in the right direction. How can we, or what is the next level of engagement or for cooperation between Regents and BESE that will help the K-12 schools going forward so that whatever these new rigorous, or at least what I'm hearing, I mean, what is it going to help for us the next level? We're hearing a lot through my support, my work with Committee 100 and lobby about apprenticeships. So a lot of companies are working to try to get that down at the K-12 level. But is that where it is? How can we, next level, what is the next level of collaboration?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So the revised accountability formula that we presented and our board approved really does a few things. I won't speak in detail to the elementary and middle school space, although it does create an expectation that not only do we have students growing each year, a year's worth of growth for a year's worth of classroom instruction, but also moving them towards absolute proficiency at the same time through elementary and middle school. Where I think the opportunities for increased collaboration exist are in the high school space. And specifically, while we have further committed to increasing proficiency in those core academic areas through the revised formula, we've also created what's called the Acceleration Index. And the way I think about this really is that students, as they are progressing through their high school years, in conjunction with their families and the school, those students are thinking about the options for their future. And you know, I think about that really in three ways, understanding there's crossover in between all of those. But one is for students that and their families that the student intends to go to a four-year university, we want to make sure that they have access during high school to college credit. That can come in the form of dual enrollment. That can come in the form of AP coursework, of IB coursework. We're more or less agnostic on you have to do it this way, but we just want students and their families who are interested in that path to have access to credit in high school so that they exit high school with college credit. We think it's helpful for a number of reasons. One of the first and foremost is that they build a relationship with an institution. They're more likely to go, they're more likely to stay. That's part of the Acceleration Index. The next piece is for students who, for those students that are choosing to go straight to a career after high school, We are, as the Department of Education, removing ourselves as the curator of what is a high-quality credential, and that has been moved to Louisiana Works under Secretary Showen. And so Secretary Showen and Osmar and that team are working with the regional economic development groups, and they're making determinations on what are the credentials of value, whether that's a bundle of credentials, whether it's an advanced credential, whether it's a full registered apprenticeship, whether it's a certificate of technical studies with a community college. There's an expectation that for students that are going straight to the workforce, they're not just exiting with a high school diploma, they're exiting with a high school diploma of value and also having completed one of these opportunities with certificate in hand and also an internship. So we're also asking our business and industry partners across the state to consider taking on high school students as interns. And thankfully legislation has also passed that has created tax credit opportunities for businesses that want to take in interns and apprentice students. So that's the second piece. And then the third piece really is honoring students that are choosing to go into military service. So we are, for the first time, honoring that in our revised accountability system if students are enlisting in the military. So that's the way in which we're thinking about the high school experience, and in all of those different areas, there's tons of opportunities for collaboration across Regents and BESE. And we do think by doing this, if we focus on those core academic areas, reading and math specifically, but also have an overlay of an expectation for college credit in high school or credentials of value in high school, not only is it going to be good for the student as a graduate, but it's really going to be a catalyst for the Louisiana economy. So we're excited about that work, and we'll continue to collaborate in those areas.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn? So move at second. All right, Regents will remain in this room and start our meetings at 11:10, which is in just a few minutes. Do we have time for a bathroom? Very quick bathroom and water break. We are adjourned. Thank you very much. All right, members, if you'll make your way to your seats, we'll get the second half of this meeting started and on the road. We're now going to get started with our Board of Regents committee meetings, beginning with LATA. Members, remember that we are being live streamed, so you need to turn on your microphones and turn off your phones. Commissioner Reed, please call the LATA meeting to order.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I'd like to call the LATA meeting to order. Rhonda, will you please call the roll?
Dr. Reed?
Here.
Regent Aubrey? Here. Regent Cardell?
Here.
Regent Creed? Regent David? Here. Regent Finley? Here. Regent Glaser? Here. Regent Hickson? Ms. Matthews? Here. Regent May? Here. Regent Meyer? Here. Regent Pryor? Here. Regent Reeves? Here. Regent Sarda? Regent Shamee? Here. Regent Sterling?
Here.
Regent Temple? Here. Regent Williams Brown? Here. You do have a quorum.
Regent Creed is here, and we
here.
have a quorum. Thank you very much. Members, you've received a copy of the minutes from the April 23rd, 2025 meeting. Be happy to entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Moved by Regent David. Is there a second? Regent Creed has a second. Is there any discussion? Any questions or objections? If not, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Now I'd like to call on our Interim Executive Director, Dr. Susanna Craig, to present the agenda item for today.
Yes, thank you. We have two items on the consent agenda for you this morning. Our first item is final rulemaking that allows for the transfer of account ownership when a court of competent jurisdiction orders such a transfer. In the past, the only reason why we have honored this type of request is when the original account owner had died, or perhaps in the event of a divorce. So this rulemaking, it also adds the start interest rates for principal protection plan for the 2024 calendar year. So these are things that we must do every year. So that is the first consent agenda item. The second consent agenda item is a little more involved. This is due to some changes to the One Big Beautiful Bill Act of 2025. There were several changes that expanded the use of our START programs, START K-12, and our LA ABLE programs. For START, and essentially this is the definition of qualified higher education expenses. And what this is doing for START is expanding for cost of attendance, recognized credential programs. This is allowing tuition, fees, books, supplies, equipment, and any other expenses that are considered a qualified higher education expense. In addition, this is allowing for fees for enrollment in a recognized postsecondary testing that a student might need to take. And it also, if there are any extenuating post-secondary credential that someone may need to continue, this allows for that as well. For our K-12 program, this is allowing for curriculum and curricular materials, any tutoring, any norm reference testing or achievement test that student might need to take. Families can use those dollars to pay for, say, taking additional ACT tests, AP exams, or education therapies that a student might need. It also increases the maximum annual distribution that a student can use up to $20,000 a year instead of just $10,000 a year. And then for our LA ABLE program, this rulemaking will allow for work provisions for our constituents that use this program. It includes the definition of the annual contribution limit, as well as adds an exception to this limit for qualified account owners. So if there are no questions, the LASFA Advisory Board recommends approval of the consent agenda items.
Thank you so much, Dr. Craig. Is there a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Regent May, second by Regent Creed and others. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Let me just also mention that I know you all are aware we have been trying to get on the other side of a significant cyber incident. You heard reference to the START accounts. Dr. Craig, as our interim executive director, did directly communicate with all account holders. We have about 80,000 account holders, about 40,000 accounts, almost over $1.8 billion in the START accounts. And those accounts are secure. We have had outside forensic audits reviewed. The chair and I have been involved in that every day. And we have been assured that all of that information in terms of the START accounts is safe. And so I just wanted to update that further in the meeting. We'll talk further about where we are with LASFA, but I did want to at least acknowledge that since we were specifically talking about START here. So with that, is there any other business to come before the committee? Here. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn? Regent May, second. Regent Reeves. I assume no opposition. We are adjourned. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, moving right along. Next up is our Academic and Student Affairs Committee. Regent Sterling, will you please call your committee to order?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'd like to call the Academic and Student Affairs Committee meeting to order. Dr. Denley, will you please call the roll?
Be happy to. Regent Sterling.
Here.
Regent Aubrey.
Here.
Regent Creed. Regent Glazer. Regent Meir. Regent Shamia. Regent Sarda. LCCCS representative. LSU representative. Southern representative? UL System representative? Have a quorum. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Denley. We will now move to item number 3, the consent agenda. Dr. Denley, please proceed.
Thank you so much. So we have 2 items on the consent agenda today. The first is a set of routine staff approvals that are name changes and changes in modality of presentation, but I do want to make sure that regents take note of item A, which is terminations, just as we promised at the September meeting. If you'll remember, there were 10 to 20 programs that we presented at your September meeting that you approved for termination, but there would be a further 26 programs throughout the year that we would gradually bring for your consideration. 8 of those programs are on the agenda today. Actually, 6 of those programs were part of that original 26. The associate degrees there at Bossier Parish and at Delgado, and then as well as that, we have two new programs that were not part of the previous list. Those 2 graduate certificates there at the University of Louisiana Lafayette. So certainly across the year, we anticipate now to terminate 48 programs during the current year, which will bring us right up to around 128 programs since we began this work. So it's a considerable undertaking from our campuses. And as we say, it is an ongoing process. There are, I know, campuses that are taking a serious look at the programs that they are providing, especially as they bring new proposals to you. So with that, senior staff recommend the approval of the items on the consent agenda.
Thank you very much. You've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items?
So moved.
Regent Arbery, second. Regent Glazer. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Now, moving on to the academic programs. Dr. Denley?
Thank you very much. Yeah, so we have 2 associate programs for your consideration today, one at Sewella and one at River Parishes. So the first at Sewella is an AAS in Data Science, Analytics, and AI. So this is actually the first degree program in the state in data science, analytics, and AI, and certainly in the 2-year space. This is been developed in response to, I think we all believe this, a growing demand for professionals who can interpret and apply data across industries. We've heard it as a common theme throughout the day, and so sure enough, seeing our institutions being nimble enough to offer these programs, graduates of the program will be prepared for positions such as data analysts, data scientists, AI specialists. So this, I think, is a really exciting program to see Sewella provide. We're now, from here on out, when I present a new program, I also want to give reference to programs that institutions are terminating as sort of a nod to the fact that we are seeing programs or institutions make deliberate decisions about how they reinvest and reallocate resources. And so Sewella is planning to terminate a technical diploma, which we have not seen yet, but will certainly be part of consideration moving forward, and we'll make sure to make note of that when it appears later in the year. So the second proposal is an Associate of Applied Science in Technical Studies from River Parishes. You'll remember that we have seen a number of these programs across the years. This is a really wonderful opportunity when campuses are able to do this. It allows students who have a technical diploma to be able to take that technical diploma and then sort of layer it up to them being a full-blown associate degree. Then, once they have that associate degree, we have bachelor's degrees across the state, notably at LSU Alexandria and at UL Monroe, where those associate degrees can then fully transfer into those bachelor's degrees. So, terrific program for us to see there at River Parishes. From a resource perspective, this is a really light program to offer because the technical diplomas already exist in HVAC and electrical studies and all of those things. This is really the institution creating the curriculum that allows students to take general education courses, which they already offer, to sort of layer that up to being that full-blown associate degree. again, with a nod to reallocation of resources, River Parishes did in fact terminate an AAS degree in construction science as part of your approval there in September, and has plans to terminate another associate degree later in the year, which again we'll make note of when at a future meeting. So with that, senior staff recommends approval of the academic programs as presented.
Thank you again, Dr. Denley. Members, you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve the academic programs as presented? Regent Creed, second. Any questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on to item 5, the 2024-25 articulation and transfer report.
Madam Chair, who seconded that motion? Okay. We just wanted to confirm.
Yes.
So today we have two legislative reports to present. So the first of those is our articulation and transfer report. Each year we provide a detailed analysis of how it is that our institutions are handling course transfer and credential transfer. This is really based in legislation from back in 2009 that really first laid out and set out the course of action when it comes to transfer. You may know that over the last couple of years, we have really doubled down on enabling students to be able to transfer coursework, credentials, the infrastructure that was laid out in 2009 really allowed us to first of all, now much more recently, make sure that every student, if they take a general education course, can seamlessly transfer that course between any 2-year and 4-year, or actually any public institution in the state. And then more recently, we've created the universal transfer pathways that really allow students in each particular major discipline to be able to be assured that if they take those courses on the transfer pathway, that no matter where it is that they go in the state, they can apply all of those courses, not only as a transfer credit, but actually as a credit towards those curricula. So the reality is that we are seeing some really positive progress when it comes to transfer. I really want to draw your attention to the number of Louisiana transfer associate's degrees being awarded. The way that we created those universal transfer pathways was to give students alternative ways to be able to earn the Louisiana transfer associate degree. Certainly, some of the students who utilize those UTPs will not graduate before they transfer, but certainly we want to encourage them to do so. And so the fact that we've seen the number of LTA degrees being awarded last year increased by 19% is a really encouraging sign of the steps that we've taken really beginning to pay off. I do want to take a moment of privilege to say a big thank you to the representatives who serve on this State Articulation and Transfer Council. These are representatives from all 4 systems and also from K-12 and actually also from LACU as well. And they've really been wonderful partners in getting this to work. The reality is that we do, as we look around the country, look at transfer. Louisiana is really a shining star in the country when it comes to the way in which transfer is now being handled. So these numbers are certainly testament to that work. Yes, sir. Yeah, so certainly when students transfer from out of state, from institutions that are regionally accredited, all of our institutions have sort of very rich transfer matrices that recognize coursework to coursework, and all of the way that we've set up the universal transfer pathways honor that. So if a student were to take college algebra from Ole Miss, let's say, they could certainly transfer that course to any of our 2 or 4-year institutions, and it would count towards all of our universal transfer pathways. And I'm sure we would all be very happy if people did, in fact, transfer from Ole Miss and come to any of our institutions. So, so with that, senior staff recommend approval of the 2024-25 Articulation and Transfer Report and authorize the Commissioner of Higher Education to submit the report to the appropriate legislative committees on behalf of the Board of Regents.
Regent Glazer? Motion? Second? By Regent Creed? Any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes. We'll move on now to item 5B, the 2025 Post-Secondary Inclusive Education Report. Dr. Denley.
So much. So again, this work really stems from work in 2022 when the session created the Post-Secondary Inclusive Education Advisory Council to create and expand opportunities for students with intellectual disabilities to have access to programs across our state. At the time when we did that, we had just a few programs at some institutions in the state who offered educational experiences at 2-year and 4-year institutions to serve this population. And thanks to some generous support from the legislature, we really have in recent years been able to significantly expand the opportunities that are available. Most notably, we now have, you see the programs in front of you, BRCC, Bossier, LSU A&M, which is a brand new program as part of the offerings that we have, McNeese State, Nichols, that has been a long-time program, as has Southeastern and University of Louisiana Lafayette. But a new program there at UL Monroe, the first program in the north part of the state. And then certainly I'm very happy to see the new program at Fletcher to serve the Houma area. And then also the 2 new programs at Southern A&M and SUNO, again, our first programs at HBCU. So what's happened in the work of this group, in the work of this council, has been to provide substantial support to expand and enhance the ability for students to have access to these programs. If you tot up the numbers of the current enrollment, you'll see that currently we have 112 students who are enrolled in our post-secondary inclusive programs across the state. I just looked it up this morning. When we began this, we were at 80. So to move from 80 to 112 is a really substantial increase. When we tot up the program capacity that is anticipated for next year, when all of our programs will be up and going, we will be at 182. So that means that we will have more than doubled the overall state capacity to serve this student population. And I know that I really, again, want to say a big thank you to all of the institutions who have been involved in this, because I know that to create these programs has been a substantial learning curve, to know the obligations that we have, the ways to structure those programs, the federal obligations that we need to make sure that these programs are appropriately approved, but just some tremendous progress. And some very important legislative action, that it is now the case that these programs will be supported by a flow of funds from the sports betting taxes that are paid across the state. So that then, again, provides an ongoing, secure funding source for these programs. So senior staff recommend approval of the 2025 Post-Secondary Inclusive Education Report and authorizes the Commissioner of Higher Education to submit the report to the appropriate legislative committee on behalf of the Board of Regents.
Members, again, you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve the 2025 Post-Secondary Inclusive Education Report? Regent Creed, second, Regent Aubrey. Any further discussion, members? Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes. Is there any other business to come before the Academic and Student Affairs Committee, Dr.
There's
Denley?
none.
Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn? No objections? Then we are adjourned.
Next up is the Research and Sponsored Initiatives Committee. Regent Finley, will you please call your committee to order?
Sponsored Initiatives Committee to order. Ms. Robinson, will you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Regent Finley.
Here.
Regent Pryor. Here. Regent Glazer. Regent Hickson. Here. Regent May. Regent Shemia. Here. You have a quorum.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the conversion of an endowed first-generation scholarship to an endowed 2-year workforce scholarship. Would you proceed, Ms. Robinson, in providing us information on that?
Yes, North Shore Technical Community College has requested, at the request to them of the original donor, to convert the Weeks Marine First Generation Scholarship, which was a scholarship established to support first generation college students, into the endowed 2-year workforce scholarship called the Weeks Marine Endowed Scholarship and Maritime Support Programs, and the corpus of this conversion would be $50,000. The purpose is really to support the workforce development activities in marine support, maritime support programs, which is the opportunity that's provided by Weeks Marine. And the senior staff recommends approval.
Members, you've heard the recommendation of the senior staff to approve the transfer or the transformation of the scholarship. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Been moved by Regent Hickson, seconded by Regent May. Any objections? Any concerns or questions? Hearing none, the motion passes. The next item is item number 4, the FY 2026 Board of Regents Support Fund Plan and Budget. Ms. Robinson, please proceed.
Yes, ma'am. As you may remember, in October, we went through this in some detail. I will go very quickly through a recap of what we are recommending in terms of the support fund plan and budget for fiscal year 26. Fiscal year 27. I always forget we're a year ahead. So just to remind you, this is a constitutionally dedicated program that is in Article 7 of the Constitution. However, as you heard earlier today, Act 222 of the 2025 regular session proposes to repeal the trust fund that provides the funding for these programs, as well as all subfunds, including the LEQSF, the Board of Regents Support Fund. We still are constitutionally required to provide a plan and budget for fiscal year 27, even though the fund may not exist at that point, and that is what we are doing here. We have developed this plan and budget with the assumption that if Act 222 does not pass the vote of the people, that the support fund will continue as is for the coming year. So we have gathered together all of the guidance that we have in terms of how much money we can expect to yield in fiscal year 27 for programming, and we have recommended a base budget of $22 million, which is aligned with all of the various projections and estimates we've received. We will spend this money in 3 buckets. Prior commitments, these are obligations that are already on the books, including multi-year awards, which we expend in each fiscal year in which the award is active, rather than out of one fiscal year in total. So our multi-year grants and contracts total $2.4 million, a little bit more. We also have obligations for federal awards that have been provided by agencies like National Science Foundation, National Institutes of Health, NASA, and so forth, and those total 1.275 in fiscal year 27 for a total of $3.687 million. The next thing we allocate funds to is the administration of the programs. These funds pay for the staff who run the various programs that we offer. We do offer 10 programs, funding programs, so we have a very small staff and a very small amount of money, which is determined in statute. We are allowed to expend no more than 3% of the 3-year average of expenditures across the support fund for administration, so $568,184 is budgeted. I will note, as I always do, that as the support fund revenues have declined significantly by more than half over the last several years, our staff has commensurately been cut. We started with 11.5 in 2009. We are now down to 3.2 staff who work full-time on the support fund. Finally, all the monies that are remaining in the budget estimate, we commit to new awards. These are inclusive of federal awards that we expect to receive starting in fiscal year 27, $250,000, as well as matches for endowments, like the one that you just converted from one type to another. These are chairs, professorships, first-generation scholarships, graduate scholarships, and then finally, the support fund grants and contracts. These are research development contracts which provide for faculty supported research, as well as enhancement contracts, which provide equipment purchases, supply purchases, curriculum development, all of those kinds of activities that support the academic work of our departments and units. In fiscal year 27, because our prior commitments are reduced, which I will talk about with the next agenda item, we have a total of $17.744048 available for new awards. And this is what the total budget looks like across all programs, as well as in the blue column, the budget from the previous year, which you will see is at $17 million. Our current year budget is $17 million. The reason for the difference between the 17 and the 22 is the conditions that drive our revenues have substantially increased, and therefore the estimates that we've received have significantly increased. And so we follow the estimates, and this will help us to recover a little bit of the ground that we have lost over the last 15 years in revenues to the support fund. We do also have contingencies. If the revenues change, if, say, that 22 million is too high, the estimates have come in too high. If things are higher than budgeted, if the legislature, or if we receive more than we budget, we will not request any increase in spending authority from the legislature, and we will bring any plans for spending any additional revenue to this board for approval. We have to have your approval in order to expend any money out of the support fund, so any additional revenues would be allocated per your approval. If it's lower than budgeted, frankly, since I started in this position in 2010, it has always been lower than budgeted when we've had to make a change. If partial reductions are needed, we take proportional cuts across all the competitive programs. So we take that dollar amount, we figure out what percentage cut we need, and we take the cut across all of them. If we need to make additional cuts after we've exhausted the competitive programs, this has never ever happened in the history of the support fund, but we do like a contingency in case it does happen. If additional cuts are needed, we will take cuts out of the non-obligated funds, which are the new monies, and that would be out of the non-competitive endowed professorships program. If we still need more cuts, again, never happened in the history of the support fund, only then will we look at prior commitments, federal matching dollars, anything that we have obligated on your behalf. We will not cut those until we have cut everything that we have not yet obligated. And the staff recommendation is approval of the fiscal year 26-27 support fund plan and budget with contingencies as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Members of the committee, you've heard the recommendation of the senior staff to approve the FY 2026-27 budget and plan with contingencies. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve. Sure.
We can get to discussion after, if there's a second. Okay. Is there, it's been seconded by Regent May. Any discussion? That's you, Regent Shamia.
Yes, it has gone through the legislature. That's Act 222 of 2025, proposes liquidation of the fund and repeal of the LEQTF, the Louisiana Education Quality Trust Fund, which provides the funding for both BESE and board. That's what you heard about from the Treasurer's office in the joint meeting. So it goes to a vote on May 16th, 2026. Yes, sir. And the way that the legislation is structured, as soon as the vote happens, if it's affirmative, they will liquidate the funds immediately. The plan is to liquidate the funds and pay the unaccrued liability by the end of the fiscal year.
One quick, when you say go to vote May 16th, that's a public vote, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, just making sure that's correct. Okay.
Statewide public vote.
Yes.
And if it passes, you won't run an application period for 26, 27.
Correct. If it passes, the support fund ceases to exist. It's repealed.
From an admin and operation, then those costs and those 3.2 FTEs, are we prepared to reallocate and absorb that in some other function of Regents? Then I have a couple other questions.
Yes, thank you for that question. As you know, this vote went before the people previously. It was not successful, but it did put in motion our planning to basically convert our support fund staff to a grant operations staff. Tristan and his team and others have been very successful in continuing to get outside support for our momentum work and other things, bringing in additional grants. Tristan will be mentioning, I won't steal his thunder, a big grant we've received he'll talk about today. So we do want to make sure that that staff has an opportunity to continue to add value, whether it's seeking contracts or helping us to manage the grants that we're continuing to successfully receive.
Okay. That being the case, Madam Chair, I've had discussions with you. It seems like there is a plan as it relates to staff. This is at risk. And we've also are discussing some other structural changes, whether it's with LASFA and with the IT piece. I would hope that the board, at least as one member, I would love to see a plan that addresses how we're going to move and pivot and adjust should any of these things continue and those that have happened were to occur. So my recommendation would be, I guess, or my question really is about the support fund. I mean, I may think it's going to pass, but if it doesn't pass, how do we look at opportunities to really further support the dual enrollment and these teacher apprenticeship type programs? Yes, we can go to the legislature and we can, do what we need to do there. But if there are any leftover dollars, unobligated, unexpended dollars, could the support fund guidelines be administered in such a way that we could, ramp up our efforts in those programs?
As we're about to discuss, the way that the statute is written, there will any unobligated dollars that are already in our accounts will be swept and paid and used to pay the UAL. So there will not be an opportunity for support fund dollars for new initiatives or carry forward initiatives should the constitutional amendment pass.
As well as that, I would say, and Carrie can speak to that, there are statutory guidelines around constitutional guidelines around what is an allowable use of funding. And so I don't think dual enrollment or any of those would be allowable, but Carrie can certainly speak to those.
Yes, if you look on slide 89, constitutionally designated programs, these are the 4 areas in which we're allowed to expend money in the support fund, which is why it's structured the way it is. We do fund across all 4 of these areas, though the Constitution doesn't require that we do all 4. But things like dual enrollment and any kind of direct student support, we can only provide academic supports and only through these structures.
But even if it could, it will be zeroed out if this legislation passes.
That's correct. It'll be swept essentially immediately.
Regent Shamia?
So the board has not, I don't think, has traditionally taken a position on it, but individual members certainly as citizens have spoken about their issues, whether they are in support or not, or at least sharing information during the legislative session. Both sessions, when they considered this, we were able to talk about the significant value add of this fund to the research capacity and the competitiveness of our state. And so that's the work that we've done to this point. And again, it's up to the board to have that conversation as individual members and as the board collectively.
Any other discussion?
I would like to make a comment just on Regent Aubrey's question about the staff. I would just like to recognize that 2 members of the 3.2 support fund staff have been with the support fund almost as long as I have collectively. We have over 75 years of experience in the support fund. So they are very well versed in how external funding works, both from the funder and the funded side, and they are very well prepared to take on the kind of lift that Dr. Denley's significant funding requires.
Any other discussion? Questions?
I just make one correction if I can. She said they are, but she should say we are. Carrie, shout out to you and your team. Thank you for that correction.
Any other comments? There's a motion and a second on the floor. Any objection? Hearing none, the motion passes. The next item on the agenda is funding, the multi-year funding of contracts and federal matching extending beyond possible repeal. Ms. Robinson, will you continue providing us information on this topic?
Yes. I will be happy to. So this gets to the point that we were just discussing, which is the funds will be swept on the day, as soon as possible after the affirmative vote of the people. So when we talk about prior commitments, as I said in the budget presentation, those prior commitments are funded by fiscal year. So if you have a 3-year research project, for example, it will be funded out of 3 separate fiscal years. Bless you. We have some projects that are continuing and would continue past the repeal date of the support fund, if that is affirmative. We would like, if at all possible, to fund those obligations, which are positive obligations on the board, but also receipts for all of our institutions, public and private. We have institutions across the state who are expecting to receive money for ongoing research and enhancement project. We have sufficient monies in unexpended earnings from previous years. If we earn additional money in a previous year, as you noticed with the contingencies, we don't typically ask to increase our spending authority. We don't typically ask you to spend that extra money in a hurry at the end of a fiscal year. What we do with it is we leave it in the unexpended earnings fund, and that's helped us in years that we've been short of funds. When we have budget estimates that don't come in on target, we can actually cover additional money by using what we call our reserve fund, though it's actually just the balance that's left in the account when we've paid off all of our obligations for the year. So we have sufficient reserve funds to cover existing contracts, multi-year contracts that would extend beyond the repeal, as well as any obligations we've made to federal awards. It's important to note with federal matching that when a state provides federal matching, if that award is made, typically the matching obligation that you've committed is required to be retained in full throughout the period of the grant. So again, we have a situation where we have about 6 federal awards that would be in jeopardy if these funds were not provided. So we could either at that point figure out a mechanism to retain the funds from the support fund and obligate them, or we can go back to the legislature and say somebody's got to find the money to support these obligations. So what we are proposing is to use not the entire balance, but some balance of our reserve funds to cover these 2 categories of funding that would outlive the repeal of the support fund, existing contracts and federal matching. The total we need is about $12.8 million, $12.8319621 to be exact. We're providing a recommendation to obligate $13 million. The reason for the over obligation is simply to give a little buffer in the event that we've undercalculated somewhere, or that a federal matching project comes in at an amount that we're not expecting. So we're recommending $13 million. Again, you have to approve every nickel we spend. So if something like that does come up, we will come back to you for approval of the project to expend those dollars, but we are asking for a slight overage.
Members, you've heard the recommendation of the senior staff regarding the obligation of funding. Is there a motion to approve this item? It's been moved by Regent Shamia.
I'll second that.
And second by Regent Hickson. Any discussion?
One
I do have
quick
a question.
Go ahead.
It says under the staff summary, the proposed repeal of the support fund. I might have missed, did you talk about the history, like who proposed the repeal and why?
The repeal was originally sponsored by Representative Emerson in the third extraordinary session in 2024. Where's Representative Emerson from? Lafayette. Karen Crow? She. This was, the repeal of several trust funds and using to pay the UAL was a proposal put forward by Secretary Nelson, Richard Nelson, Secretary of Revenue, and it was the subject of the third extraordinary session. It was one of the major components of the tax reform bill. And when it came back, when it was rejected by the voters in March last year, or this year, it feels like longer. When it was rejected by the voters, it was brought back in the 2025 regular session, again by Representative Emerson, sponsored the bill. But what they did was they took that big package of tax reform legislation and they broke it up into component parts. So when you look at the constitutional amendments on the ballot in May, those constitutional amendments are the components of that big package. Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
The 13 million in terms of obligating it, does obligating say to the institutions that we're matching, we're going to go ahead and push those dollars down to them, and how much will be left in unexpended after the 13 million?
There will be very little left. There will be, well, it's hard to know because the reserve fund is unexpended dollars, so it's a moving target. It depends on how much Treasury earns in the current year.
1 million, 5 million?
No more than $1 million at this point.
Okay,
based
but
on
this
our
will
last
take
target.
care of all the, so that when if it passes and the accounts are swept, those multi-year agreements, they are good. We won't have to go to the commissioner like we talked about last year and say, hey, we got all these
Exactly.
these things out there. Okay. Thank you.
They will be good, and in terms of any concern about clearing the reserves, first, this is unobligated reserves. The board has a policy that we're required to retain $2 million in reserves. So that $1 million is on top of $2 million that we're required to retain, which is obligated reserves already. So that we will have very little remaining, but if it survives, those prior commitments that you just approved as part of the fiscal year 27 plan and budget, we won't have to pay, and so any overage earnings will replenish that fund. It's swept. It goes to pay UAL. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, there's a motion on the floor. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any nays? The motion passes. Any other business that needs to come before the committee, Ms. Robinson?
Just one very brief item. We wanted to announce that the LSTEM initiative, which has been held in RSI for 7 years now, the LSTEM initiative provides funding. We both staff the LSTEM Advisory Council, which is a statewide council to guide STEM education and workforce training initiatives statewide. And we also fund through legislative appropriation 9 regional centers that provide services to all of the regions of the state. That work is very similar to the tri-agency work that Dr. Craig was talking about during the joint meeting. That work is a combination of K-12, LDOE, Board of Regents, and the Louisiana, what was the Louisiana Workforce Commission, now LA Works. We are now pivoting that work because we have set a strong education foundation across LSTEM over the last 7 years. We are now pivoting the administration of that work to LA Works so that they can start to build out the workforce piece of the LSTEM initiative. And we are very excited to tell you that that will be going over to LA Works on January 1st. But if you have concerns that we will then fade into the background, that is absolutely inaccurate. We are already working closely together, as we have for the last 7 years, to ensure that this is a true tri-agency initiative moving forward.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Does anyone, this is informational only, does anyone have any questions, comments, any additional discussion? Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Any other business that needs to come before the committee? Before I ask for a motion for adjourn, I echo, as I have in a number of meetings, Ms. Robinson, my appreciation for the work that you do and your staff in all of these uncertainties that you face and keep moving forward. We really appreciate it. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll echo your comments that you are fantastic, and so thank you, and I will offer a motion to adjourn.
It's been moved by Regent Hickson. Is there a second? It's been moved by Regent May. Any further discussion, questions, objections? Hearing none, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carrie. Next up is Statewide Programs Committee. Regent Pryor, would you please call your committee to order?
Thank you. I'd like to call the Statewide Programs Committee to order. Dr. Craig, will you call the roll?
Yes, sir. Chair Pryor, Regent Shamia,
Oh, here.
Regent May, Regent Reeves, Regent Sterling, Regent Sarda. Sir, you have a quorum.
Our first action item is item number 3, the consent agenda. Dr. Craig, the floor is yours.
Yes, we have 2 items on the consent agenda. These are very routine items that you have seen before. The first item on the consent agenda is regarding our TOPS homeschool study exemption request. We have one this month. As many of you know, that for a student needs to begin a home study program no later than the conclusion of their 10th grade year, to be eligible for TOPS without needing an exception. In many cases, due to illness or other reasons, there are reasons why a student might need to switch into a home study program after that 10th grade year, but the advisory council takes a look at these exceptions before coming to you. The second item on the consent agenda item are the approval of TOPS exceptions. We have several exceptions here, actually 24 requests for exceptions to the TOPS requirement. They were reviewed and approved by the LSU Advisory Board at its meeting on September the 17th. Basically, each student has presented facts and circumstances that the students believe justify the granting of an exception to the rules, many of which these rules are that a student needs to remain enrolled throughout the semester and earn a minimum number of credit hours by the end of the academic year, also maintaining a grade point average. So we are requesting 24 exceptions to these rules. If there are no questions, the LSU Advisory Board recommends approval of the consent agenda items.
Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
So if a student has, in their senior year of college and they're on TOPS and say they did dual enrollment and they're no longer in need of, they don't need to be enrolled full-time because they only have a few hours remaining because they got into dual enrollment.
Right, so they only need 9 hours left, say 9 hours to graduate.
Or below. I was told recently that they can't get their TOPS. Is that correct, and can that be corrected?
Robin, if you'll come join us, this is Robin Lively from LSU. I asked her to stay here to answer any.
Or they're having to take courses unnecessary to be full-time.
Good morning.
When they didn't need the hours.
That's not accurate. If they're in their last semester to where they would be graduating, The TOPS award will pay for that, but the school must bill us that the student is programmed full-time. The same rationale applies for students who are in nursing school. For example, clinicals is generally not going to be 12 hours. So the school has to bill us a certain way so that we can pay their TOPS award in those circumstances.
But the student doesn't have to take unnecessary
No,
classes?
sir, absolutely not.
Okay.
Thank you, Robin. Any other questions?
Okay. Is that all your recommendations?
We have, that's all for TOPS. We are moving on to the next agenda item, if
Okay.
that's okay.
Okay, I need a motion. Ms. Reeves, second. Dr. Shamaya. Okay. Is there any further discussion? Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes.
Thank you. So next, what we are doing, Regent members, in the statewide programs over the course of the year, we will be spotlighting several programs that the Board of Regents the work that we are engaged in statewide that you need to be aware about, because we're doing some really great work across the state. I'm very excited today to present to you some of the great work that we're doing in early childhood initiatives. With me today, I have Dr. Michelle DeMolinaire to talk about some of our early childhood initiatives that are happening on our college campuses. Dr. DeMolinaire?
Thank you. I'm here today to give you just a brief snapshot of the early care and education initiatives on our campus child care centers. Today's student, as stated in our master plan, our talent imperative includes relentless commitment to today's student. This includes high school students, veterans, first-generation students, incarcerated, formerly incarcerated, foster youth, working parents, or adult in rural areas. Today I'm going to talk to you about one particular student. This is students with children. Nearly 18% of undergraduate students are raising children while attending a post-secondary education institution. Over half of them are from community and technical colleges, and 74% of them are women. Half of the student parents are raising children under the age of 6. And over 28% of the undergraduate student parents did not have an additional $500 in the event of an emergency. So think about breaking down their car, utilities, food, diapers, a trip to the doctor. And most of our undergraduate student parents work full-time while attending college and raising a child. There are many benefits to having a campus early learning center. One of the main benefits is supporting the academic success of our student parent. And as Regent May, in his March 2025 in The Advocate, stated, with a high-yielding return on investment, early childhood education is one of the most cost-effective ways to strengthen Louisiana's economy and support working families. The lack of childcare costs the Louisiana economy $1.3 billion from our state. Children enrolled in our campus early learning centers are provided with a high-quality early learning environment, which has a positive impact on kindergarten readiness. Many of our campus early learning centers also serve as laboratory schools, providing education students an optimum learning environment and professional development. Campus early learning centers are a recruitment and retention tool for both faculty and students. I know you've seen this graphic before, but this is just a reminder that the cost of childcare in Louisiana and other states is more than the cost of college tuition. There are programs such as child care assistance, which many of you have heard of, the targeted assistance to needy families. These need-based programs, although they are available, have significant waiting lists. So most of them do not help our student families because they have a 2 to 3 year waiting list. As you look at this visual, you can see that there are many sources of funding for economically disadvantaged birth to 3-year-old. However, this serves only about 18% of the population. 82% of economically disadvantaged children ages birth to 3-year-olds remain unserved in our state. We have work to do. So improving collaboration between colleges and public programs assists our student parents in finding the services that they need for their families. Services that could include SNAP, TANF funding, Head Start, early Head Start, supplemental nutrition for women and children, Medicaid, child care assistance, the Child and Adult Care Food Program, and wraparound services that could assist them while they study. Currently, we have 14 early learning centers at 4-year institutions and 5 at 2-year institutions. Several years ago, guided by the Board of Regents, our campus early learning centers formed a collaborative. This collaborative meets quarterly to discuss issues pertinent to funding and policy for early learning centers. In October 2025, we extended our collaboration to include early childhood faculty, school districts, and community support agencies to increase capacity building and services for all of our student families. In 2023, the Board of Regents partnered with the Louisiana Policy Institute of Children on a community network grant, and we received about $500,000 in funding for 3 years for workforce and early childhood education projects to address compensation, sustainable funding, and minimizing the adverse effects on policy changes, and center the voices of those most impacted by the design and implementation of workforce solutions. So some key points for early childhood education. Collaboration is the key, and it is the heart of the work that we do at Regents in support of scaling high-quality early childhood access at our institutions and across Louisiana. We acknowledge that there is funding challenges and the decline in federal and state funding for early childhood. As a result, it becomes critical to engage with local communities and partners to identify resources and support. Fostering relationships with businesses, nonprofits, educational institutions, create a network of support that becomes critical and fosters our goal of collaboration. It's important that we communicate, which we do currently with provide a monthly newsletter to our early child care site directors, and will continue to do that about any policy changes that they need to be aware of, including their stakeholders such as parents, educators, and community members, as well as information regarding state and federal policies. As we hear of state and federal policies, we communicate these directly to our early learning center sites. And we are looking at creating new pathways that are laser focused on creating new early childhood educator pipelines, as our educators are critical to the high quality sites. Our goal is to create a transferable early childhood certificate to a 2- and 4-year institution and build off the work of the Tri-Agency Initiative to establish an early childhood apprenticeship program. We look forward to and encourage the innovation and exploring alternative funding such as grants, community fundraising, and partnerships. By working together and communicating effectively, we can create sustainable pathways to support early childhood education, ensuring that all children have access to quality early learning experiences despite the funding challenges. Okay.
Before she goes to our last slide, with an ask for each of you, I'd like to just acknowledge this. All of this work is really being led by Dr. DeMolinaire. She came to us. She is an expert in early child care. I said it wrong.
Early care and education.
Early care and education. And she is really, I liked her words, laser focused. She has provided training on good business models to these child care centers. She has helped them with getting licensing requirements so that they can increase capacity on the child care centers on campuses. So because of her experience in the child care world, and she has just done really great work for us here at the Board of Regents, and I wanted to acknowledge her today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next slide. We need your help. Next slide.
Save the date. Read Across America. For the Board of Regents, it's going to be March 5th, but any day between March 2nd and March 2nd and March 5th. If you're interested in reading, yeah.
Okay.
If you're interested in reading at an early care and education site at one of our campuses, we would love to host you. Just reach out to Emily, and Emily will connect you with me, and I will schedule something so that you can read a story. This is Dr. Reed reading last year at LSU. We visited LSU in Southern last year. It was fun. And the questions that come from these Read Across America readings is heartwarming. So I hope you're able to join us anytime during that week for Read Across America.
And we'll pick institutions that are in your local area. So hopefully you will reach out to Emily and let us know that you're available. We'll send you all the materials. We'll send you the books and the gift bags.
And we may even join you.
We'll join you for the day as well. So that is for information purposes only.
I have a question. So I'm going back to slide 114 where you show the number of institutions. Are institutions that don't have early childhood centers, is it because they're not funded or there's not a need or a combination?
We have several of our two-year institutions that are very interested in early care and education. However, it is a funding mechanism. We are looking at those centers to try to expand into maybe an early Head Start model in those communities. At our four-year institutions, we've just recently opened 2 additional ones in the past year. Grambling had a center. It closed down 10 years ago. Due to the campus grant, they were able to reopen that center. So we're very excited about that. We also opened one at Suno. It's a public-private partnership with Wilcox Academy, and it hosts many children from that community. So we're really excited about that. And we're going to continue to expand for those institutions that are interested. I will do whatever I can to find some kind of partnership.
Do you have any numbers on the potential students if they go to enter the higher institute college, if they don't have the early childhood? Will they go or will they not end up in school? Is there any numbers of the potential college enrollment that never enrolls because they can't have early childhood?
Yes, I think I know what you're talking about. Does the early childhood, going to early care and education to a quality center, does it improve kindergarten readiness, and does it lead to graduation of a four-year institute to a four-year institution or a degree? And the answer is yes, because they are better prepared. I'm not going to quote the percentage, but I think it's about 50%. Is that right, Melinda?
In terms of, we don't have data to say what students are missing out. We do have data to say that
and this is Malin coming to you, joining you, just diving right in. We do have data to say the pie chart that Dr. DeMolinaire shared about that missing percentage. There's a lack of care to birth to 3-year-olds.
Let me.
You're asking for the number of
reword.
students who are not.
How many parents of the of the young children never get to go to college
Oh, you have
without the early
access.
childhood?
Yeah.
My bad.
We don't
I don't have
necessarily
that number,
that
but I
data.
do know someone that may. We are working with New America. And so
Yeah.
I will go ahead and I will ask them and I will email you that number, but it is a large number.
It's hard to say because ultimately, if they're not applying to our institutions, we're missing out, right? If they haven't applied to say, childcare is the thing that I am missing, is it childcare? Is it workforce? But when you have a supportive environment like Dr. DeMolinaire, where you know that the site that, you're going to one of those institutions and it has on-care child, there's a place for you, that definitely opens doors. And so I don't know if we'll look at what's nationally available. There's some national numbers, but Louisiana specific, that particular data point may not. Hard to wrap our arms around, as Dr. Reed
And
would say.
they are investigating to the C Campus grant was recently transferred from the Federal Department of Education over to Health and Human Services. And we're not sure that funding will continue. So there is a study right now, a study resolution to find out how that funding is going to impact our student families. And so we'll have more information to come.
Okay. Well, thank you for that update, and thank you for the spotlight on this issue, which is of enormous importance in our state. And I am encouraged to see the number of early child care centers on that chart all over our state at the 4-year and 2-year universities. And I hope all the board members here will take the time to take you up on your offer to read at a early child care center in March. All right, members, do you have any more questions? And is there any other business that come before the committee?
No, sir.
Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn? Motion by Dr. Reeves. Is there a second? Okay. Mr. May, is there any further discussion? Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes and we are adjourned. Madam Chair.
Thank you very much.
Regent Meyer is the chair. Regent Meyer, will you call the roll?
Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
I'd like to call the Planning, Research, and Performance Committee to order. Dr. Craig, would you please call the roll?
Yes, I will. Chair Meyer,
Present.
Vice Chair Williams Brown, Regent David, Regent Glazer, Regent Hickson,
Here.
Regent Reeves. Ma'am, you have a quorum. Sir, you have a quorum. Sorry.
We will now move to agenda item
All over
number.
the place.
We'll move to agenda item number 3, the consent agenda. Dr. Craig, could you please proceed?
Yes, so you'll see, these are very routine. The first item on the consent agenda are our academic licensures. We have a new initial license, Carrington College. This initial license application, Carrington College, its main campus is in Sacramento, California. It is accredited by the Western Association of Schools and Colleges, which is an equal organization to the Southern Association of Schools and Colleges. This is a health career training college, and it's planning to offer 5 bachelor's degrees and 1 associate degree. It also, interestingly enough, this institution is planning to pursue a proprietary school license as well to become duly licensed into Louisiana, because they also want to offer non-degree certificates while operating in Louisiana. Additionally, we have 5 renewal applications you will see here. Rocky Vista, South University, Teachers College out of Columbia University in New York, the University of St. Augustine, and Western University of Health Sciences out of Pomona, California. All of these schools are currently accredited by a USDOE recognized accreditor, and they are already authorized to operate in their home state by the appropriate regulatory body. In addition, the Advisory Commission on Proprietary Schools has reviewed all 24 of these license renewal applications that you'll see here on the screen and in your packet. So if there are no questions, senior staff recommend approval of the items on the consent agenda.
Members, you've heard the recommendation. Are there any questions?
I have one question.
Yes,
Regent Reeves?
For the Teachers College, it's a renewal, but it shows there's no students.
Sure, I'll explain that. So they have run a Teachers College has a summer internship program for principals, and they have run it for many years. But to maintain their right or opportunity to even advertise to get students in their program, they have to maintain their license to operate here. So even if there are no students currently in their program, they cannot advertise in the state of Louisiana without having the license to operate in the state of Louisiana.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? I have a motion by Regent Reeves, a second by Williams-Brown. Regent Williams-Brown. Any questions on the readiness? All in favor say aye. Any
Aye.
oppositions? I have it. Any other business that come before the committee?
No, sir.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion by Reeves and second by Hickson. The meeting's adjourned.
All right. Thank you so much, Regent Mayor. Next up is nominating committee. Regent Mayor, will you please call your committee to order?
I'd like to call a nominating committee meeting to order. Can I get a roll call from Ms. Bentley-Smith?
Yes, sir, happy to. Chair Muir,
Present.
Regent Finley, Regent May, Regent Shmaya, Regent Temple. We have a quorum.
We'll now move to agenda item number 3 to discuss the nomination of board officers for 2026 for the positions of vice chair and secretary. The nominating committee makes the following recommendations for 2026. For vice chair, we have Regent Terry Sterling. And for secretary, we have Regent Dallas Hickson. Members, you've heard the recommendation from the nominating committee, which includes the following members: Regent Sterling and Regent Hickson. Is there a motion for the members of the nominating committee to accept the nominations for the officers for 2026? A motion by Regent May, second by Regent Temple. Is there any other further discussion? Any questions, objections? Hearing none, the motion passes. We'll now nominate 4 non-officer members to serve on the executive committee for 2026, and this is agenda item number 4. The nominating committee recommends the following members to serve on the executive committee: Regent Christian Creed, Regent Blake David, Regent Samir Shamia, and Regent Collis Temple III. Members, you've heard this recommendation. Is there a motion from the nominating committee to approve the nomination of non-officer members to serve on the executive committee for 2026? Motion by Regent May. Second by Regent Temple. Second by Regent Temple. Is there any other further discussion or questions, objections? Hearing none, the motion passes. Congratulations to our 2026 officers. We will swear in our officers during the January 2026 board meeting.
Thank you. And I would like to make just a quick comment. It's been such a pleasure working with everybody on this board and having such a evolved board. I mean, we've got a couple of rock stars with Aubrey and May and their leadership roles, and to have our past chairs and everybody on here that just truly pitches in. They ask to do more. I've got a team of advisors, and I really do appreciate each and every one of you for the support that you've given me, and also for your dedication to higher ed and what that's going to be doing for our state. So thanks so much today to the nominating committee And I look forward to working with everyone that was recommended today, as well as all of you, as we go forward with committees. And however involved you want to be, let us know. We want to plug you in. We want to make sure that you are just involved as you care to be, because it's going to take all of us. Thank you.
Is there any other business to come before the nominating committee? Hearing none, can I get a motion to adjourn? Motion by Regent Temple, second by Regent Williams-Brown. This meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is the Personnel Committee. Regent Creed, will you please call your committee to order?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And also to piggyback on what you said, thank you for your leadership and all of your dedication. It's phenomenal. I'd like to call the Personnel Committee meeting to order. Ms. Bentley Smith, please call the roll.
Happy to. Regent Creed,
Here.
Regent Sterling, Regent David, Regent Finley, Regent Pryor, Regent Temple, Regent Williams-Brown. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Elizabeth. First item on the agenda is the appointment of the Deputy Commissioner of Information and Data Strategy position. A mouthful. Commissioner Reed, at this time, I'd like to turn it over to you, please.
Thank you so much, Regent Creed. Appreciate that. Very happy to make this recommendation to you all for Deputy Commissioner for Information and Data Strategy for Carthage. He has been a member of this Regents team, really grew up in this agency since 2002. He, as you all know, has been a vital member as we've tried to get on the other side of this cyber incident. He understands the importance of working diligently, urgently, and collaboratively with people. I'm so happy to have our OTS director, Evelina, here with us as well. But Carthage has been working with OTS, with state police, with GOSEP, with the campuses, with the agencies, trying to make sure we do everything we can to strengthen and harden our processes, protect our data and our information. And so with that, Mr. Chair, I'm very happy to make this recommendation to you. As you all know, the Regents policy is that the Commissioner of Higher Education brings to the board for ratification any deputy commissioner positions. So happy to do that, happy to answer any questions, but really honored to make this recommendation to you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Members, you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve the recommendation? All right. Got a first by David, second by Temple. Is there any further discussion? Any questions? Oh, yes, sir.
Mentioned earlier is that, structural changes to the Board of Regents. I would like to just get an update on the organization chart, how this fits in, just to get an idea of kind of where we're going. It seems like we got a lot of moving pieces. I'm typically one that likes to see these senior level positions advertised, but I understand from a retention, growth, and impact, oftentimes we have to suspend what would be normal and take care of the people who've definitely done a good job. But I would like to see how this is going to fit into the overall schedule.
Happy to do that. We certainly will provide that to you and to all of the board. As you mentioned, this is certainly a retention strategy, and I'm grateful to everyone who has helped us to hang on to Carthage, who is being recruited away from us. But this is vital for us to keep him and to keep him in place. But we will definitely provide you with all the information.
Any further discussion? Any questions? Objections? Hearing none, the motion passes. Congratulations, Carthage.
Check out the suit, though. Check out the suit.
As a point of order, I would just like to note your suit is fantastic. I love that.
Yeah, best in all. Is there a motion to adjourn? All right, David. Second by Temple. Any further discussion? Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none. Oh, well, the motion passes. We're adjourned. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Regent Creed.
Congratulations, Carthage. We were very happy to have retained you. Yes. We're definitely better for it. Next, I would like to call the December Board of Regents meeting to order. Members, remember that you're being live streamed, so you will need to speak clearly into your microphones and make sure that your phones are on silent. We will now move to the roll call. Emily, will you please call the roll?
Regent Aubrey,
Here.
Regent Cordell,
Here.
Regent Creed, Regent David, Regent Finley,
Here.
Regent Glazer, Regent Hickson,
Here.
Regent May, Regent Meir,
Present.
Regent Pryor, Regent Reeves, Regent Sarda, Regent Shamia, Regent Sterling,
Here.
Regent Temple, Regent Williams-Brown. We have a quorum.
Next up, public comment. Are there any public comments?
There are none.
Hearing none, I'll ask for any additional public comments to be held over into other business. Members, you've received a copy of the October 22nd, 2025 meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Sure. Friday Ellis, thank you. We can make that change. So we had a motion by Aubrey and a second by Reeves, okay. As amended. Any further discussion, any questions, any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes. Next, we'll vote on the committee reports all together. However, if any board member wishes to take up any of the committee reports separately, please let me know and we consider those individually. Is there anyone who wishes to take up the committee reports separately? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve all of the committee recommendations from today's committee meetings in globo? May and Creed. Thank you. Any further discussion, any questions, any objections? Hearing none, motion passes. Next up, I'd like to invite Dr. Tristan Denley yet again to share the latest momentum moment, which is the announcement of the new funding to support our work on campuses across the state. Dr. Denley, take it away.
Thanks so much. Yeah, so it's my pleasure today to announce a new project that is part of the Momentum stable, if you will. And so today we're announcing a new grant in partnership with the ECMC Foundation, who are providing $1 million of support for a program we're calling the Momentum Champions. So this is a 2-year project to work with folk who are part of our student affairs and student services units across the campuses. So the way that this program will work, it's very similar to the Momentum Champions program that we already have on the academic side of the house. So the call has already gone out for each campus to nominate up to 4 people from their institution. So altogether we'll have 112 Momentum Champions. These will be folk in financial aid or advising, or the registrar's office, or in student support, maybe part of the childcare services. All of those kinds of folk will be represented, and then we will provide to them technical assistance, professional development, and then they will in turn lead on their campuses a community of practice to sort of share those best practices across their own campus and across their own communities. So it's a really terrific program, and we're very, very happy that ECMC has voted to support this work. The work has been super well received on the academic side of the house, and so we certainly anticipate a very similar kind of response on the student affairs side. So happy to answer any questions that you have. So the call for nominations actually went out earlier this week. So they'll have a full month to be able to send those names back. Yep. Thanks for that. Yep.
Thank you so much, Dr. Denley.
Thank you.
We'll now move along to my comments. They've had me busy as usual. I am back and forth quite a bit. My car, I believe, could drive itself. And we're missing our student regent today, Devesh. Devesh is in the middle of finals, so unfortunately we will not get to hear from him today. But we wish him well. So Devesh, if you're listening, we're hoping you're knocking it out of the park today. I have no doubt that he is. A little bit on my craziness. I had an opportunity, which I would have never asked for in a million years, to speak at my alma mater, which was Louisiana Tech, as the commencement speaker. So that was definitely something that pushed me outside of my comfort zone, but I'm very glad that I did it.
Madam Chair, I had somebody that attended that. They said you were fantastic, you were short and precise,
5
and you were
minutes.
awesome.
Yeah.
So-
I think I had it down to like 7 minutes and 5 seconds. I talked to myself a lot over the course of 2 days, but, oh gosh, I'd have to pull my notes out. That's for next time. I did, one of the things that I left them with, a couple of funny notations, because I gave it to my boys first, of course, and I talked about my mom, who was a first-generation grad. She went back to school at 38 and got her bachelor's in nursing after the school had told her, oh, when she went to go sign up and find out what I really want to do nursing, what am I qualified for, they told her she should probably look into retail or some sort of secretarial work. And I used the comment, my mom's a little fiery. I used the comment, it was like the hold my beer moment of my generation. So I had a couple of students say, we'll never forget, it was a commencement speech where somebody said, hold my beer. But that's really what it was, that's what it was like. And then talking about pushing them to do what's hard. Standing up in front of that many people when public speaking is definitely not something I look forward to. And at my own college, and doing what was hard, that it 100% pays off, because every time you push yourself to that one goal and go beyond it, then that just sets you up for the next one and the next one and the next one, and the dominoes fall. And to not put too much weight in titles, that the person that shows up, works the hardest, and is willing to learn will always advance. So that was just a couple of the highlights that I had from that. So very glad that I did it, and I'm not on anybody else's speaking agenda. Thank goodness. So that was great. And then the next thing that we got to go do is go to the CLTCC visit. Heather Poole is the new chancellor there, and outgoing Chancellor Jimmy Sawtelle. There's a lot of love in that campus. We're very happy to have Regent Hickson join us that day. And one of the amazing things about this group of students, they were all younger, that like 20 in the 24. There was, I think it was the kid that was in the middle in the navy or black shirt. Both of his parents were college grads. He said he wanted to be a nurse, so he started out getting his LPN in high school, and then worked on an ambulance as an EMT, and he was going to advance and get paid while he was getting his education. And he even talked about funding his 401k. And I was like, what a bright kid. I mean, he's talking about not only getting his education, but working as he went along. Every single one of those bright young minds, most of them were, they'd advanced through dual enrollment. So they were already going to have a credential by the time they graduated high school. And that was just very impressive to me. And they all had a plan, and I have no doubt that they'll achieve that and be light years ahead of some of their peers. But that was a really great day. And we got to go look at welding and electrical and construction, and the smell of sawdust makes me happy, so it was a really good day. And on to the higher ed task force that wrapped up its recommendation. As you guys probably heard, they were looking at a different accreditor other than SACS. So we had heard presentations from SACS as well as the new accreditor, something that we're going to try to look at. Competition, I think, rising tide lifts all boats, and competition raises everybody's quality. So hearing some of those recommendations were really good, and it's now going to go to the governor's desk.
Let me ask a question. Actually, this is Tristan, because I thought about this when we were listening to the transfer piece. Will this change with potentially change how, if our student goes to a school that would be non-SACS accredited, impact going to a school that is, and the acceptance of those credit hours?
I think one of the things we learned from that is that they don't have all the answers to that yet. I mean,
the new accreditor will not do community colleges nor private, so you will have a state with if the state of Louisiana pursues CPHE, we would have different accreditors.
Yeah.
But Tristan can speak to the transfer question.
Yeah, so normally speaking, and we heard it from a little bit earlier today, that, you know, when Susanna did her presentation earlier, that some of the schools were accredited by other institutions, by other folk. If the school is accredited by a regional accreditor, so one of the family of regional accreditors, then normally that means that the transfer works just as well as it always would.
What I'm concerned about is, will we get into a polarized situations of A versus B? And have we contemplated that environment where we potentially are then diluting and then forcing students to pick team A? And that may be a longer question as you all contemplate what these recommendations are, but I think when I look at the progress that we've made in all of the work that's been done that's moving the needle, I just want us to be thoughtful about potentially how this would impact us and be a barrier to that transfer.
Is this going to come to a debate before our board?
So it depends on how the recommendations move forward. At this point, there are 2 recommendations, help me with my memory, Tristan, for the Board of Regents. One, to make sure that the Board of Regents reviews its academic policies and we remove SACs and say any accreditor who's U.S. Department of Ed accredited, to allow for competition. And then the second would be to set up a structure that would allow an institution to petition to change their accreditor. And that legislation could direct the Board of Regents to set that up. If it does, it will certainly come here. So in the process, and the chair can speak to this as well, CPHE presented, they are not U.S. Department of Ed recognized. They have 2 years to do that. And so we recognize that there is an interest in competition, but we want to make sure, and Senator Edmonds, I think, led the charge to say this has to be quality and it needs to be U.S. Department of Ed recognized. If you're not U.S. Department of Ed recognized as an accreditor, the students do not have access to federal financial aid. So that's a non-starter for Louisiana or any other institution. And so this is, as the chair said, it's early days. There's an interest in expanding the opportunity for competition, but for us, you would have to have a creditor that is U.S. Department of Ed recognized for our state, because our students would not have access otherwise.
Okay.
Can I ask a follow-up to that?
Go ahead.
What is the impact? It's not accredited. It's not recognized by the Department of Education. And so we talk about undergraduate degrees, but there are students who then go on to get postgraduate degrees, medical degrees, law degrees, MBAs. How does that impact them and being recognized as they move to other states that may be offering those higher degrees? Are we, as Terry mentioned, diluting what we're doing here?
So a few things. So as the commissioner said, the only options that would be available to the institutions, at least under the way that the recommendations are put, are those accreditors that are regional accreditors that are recognized by the U.S. Department of Education. And so that's kind of been the network of accreditors across the United States now for, quite some considerable time, close to 100 years. In that sense, it's commonplace right now that you have somebody who earns a bachelor's degree from someone who is accredited by WICHE and then gets a position at a law school in an institution that's accredited by SACS or some other accreditor. So that happens a lot. What really hasn't happened, at least in recent time, is a new regional accreditor coming to the scene. And so this is what CPHE is trying to launch. As the commissioner said, there's a process to do that. It's a process that really hasn't been nobody's really done it in quite a long time. So, but the process is fairly clear that they have a 2-year window in which they have to be able to demonstrate to the U.S. Department of Education that they have standards in place, that those standards are adjudged to meet the appropriate levels of rigor, that they have people in place and processes in place to be able to do those judgments. And clearly, it's the role of the U.S. Department of Education to see whether or not in their judgment CPHE does demonstrate that. If they are, then they would then gain that recognition. One would have imagined that gaining that recognition would then come with the same kind of standing across the country that other regional accreditors do. But clearly people are people, and so no one can guarantee that that would happen. But certainly I think it would be my expectation that if they were in fact able, and of course this wouldn't happen in a closed book. I mean, the reality is the standards that CPHE are contemplating are already public, part of the public record. There's been substantial amounts of comment both from here in Louisiana and across other states as well. So I think we would imagine that once they're able to be recognized in that way, that they would, that being accredited by CPHE would have a similar standing to being accredited by any other regional accreditor.
How many other states right now, if you know, are considering?
I think
How
right
many?
now, so somebody help me. So Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and Tennessee, and North Carolina as well. That's right. So those states are the ones who are currently part of the compact that is creating the CPHE. And I know that there are some Florida schools. There are some Florida schools who are currently kind of in the process of candidacy, because Florida has a piece of legislation that says that any time an institution completes its reaccreditation cycle, then it has to change to a new recognized accreditor by the U.S. Department of Education. So there are a number of Florida schools that have come to that stage. In the last, until CPHE was an option, many of them went to HLC. Now that CPHE is kind of in this, they need some schools that are willing to walk the walk with them so that they can actually get recognized by the U.S. Department of Education. Yep. Thanks.
Still very much in its infancy. Next, we will have the commissioner's report. So Commissioner Reed, take it away.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I'm very happy to provide an update to you. We'll start with LOSFA. I definitely want to express great appreciation to Dr. Butte for her 40-plus years of service to the state, and of course to Mr. Harold Butte, for being a phenomenal Regents employee as well, more than for decades of work and championing for our students as well. Both of them, as you all know, have announced their retirements in the new year, so we want to wish them all the best. Very pleased that we have named our Deputy Commissioner, Dr. Susanna Craig, as the Interim Executive Director. She has hit the ground running with lots of work to do as we try to get on the other side of a cyber incident, which you know has been a significant one. But Dr. Craig is doing an outstanding job, and we are grateful to the entire team that are working there. As you know, in terms of the cyber incident, we were blessed to announce, and lucky and blessed, I think, to announce that the START accounts were not impacted by the cyber incident. $1.8 billion in holdings, 80,000 accounts, and 40,000 account holders. Dr. Craig has communicated directly, and throughout the incident, we communicated directly with those individuals to make sure they were aware of where we are in the process, et cetera. The criminal investigation has concluded, and we are continuing to work with OTS. Evelina is here, with State Police, with GOSEP, with IT and others, as we continue to investigate exposure of files, as well as how to harden our system, improve our security, and make sure that we are sharing lessons learned and learning how to continue to get better. So lots to do, lots of people to thank, and lots more to come for sure on that. So just wanted to share that. Next, LumCon, the chair and I had an opportunity to celebrate two important projects at LumCon: the laying of the keel for the new RV Pelican II, which is the new research vessel, and then also the groundbreaking for the new Marine Operations Center. So it was a cold day, but a great day down the bayou at LumCon. And as the chair pointed out, the exciting part as we think about the RV Pelican is that both the RV Pelican and the additional new vessel are being built by Louisiana companies right there in Houma. So really grateful to see that happening. And thanks to our executive director, Dr. Brian Roberts, for inviting us and for sharing all the excitement on that. Speaking on that, we did also have our Regents also hosted Untapped Talent Summit in New Orleans. The chair and I attended as well. This really is focused on making sure that incarcerated and formerly incarcerated individuals have a strong education to employment pathway. So we had about 100 people with us, national experts, individuals from across our state, from our institutions, of course, Department of Corrections, workforce. We spoke and heard from individuals who were formerly incarcerated, who were working and making such productive lives, some of them working in automotive repair work. One was a finance person, a mechanic at Toyota, et cetera. So we really had 2 days of great work on what Dr. Vosper called solution starters. So she had us running through the paces to make sure that we heard from great individuals. We were focused on removing barriers and trying to make sure we moved the work forward. And we also had on day one an opportunity to visit, the chair and I visited Rayburn Correctional Facilities. So we each had a table of scholars behind bars that we talked with about their programs, their plans, their future, their families, how they're instilling the importance of education in their families and their communities as well. So it was a great learning journey for all of us. Really appreciated Dr. Vosper. Well done. Not sure where is she? There she is. Well done. Well done. Well done. It was absolutely a great event. I also want to mention the fiscal summit. So this was our year 3, Elizabeth. We're year 3 of our fiscal summit. So we now convene. You know, the Regents, we like to convene people. So we convened the finance officers, the technology officers, the campus police, all of these individuals to talk a bit about cybersecurity, safety, NIL, communications, federal funding, dual enrollment, a number of topics. So I really appreciate Elizabeth Bentley-Smith, Chris Henry, Chris Herring, the Regent staff. Almost 200 individuals came as teams from every campus in Louisiana to Pennington to talk about the issues of the day and to try to learn and improve together, which is important for us in the work that we do. So with that, Madam Chair, I want to again express my appreciation to all of the board members, certainly to you as our leader. Wish everyone a really great holiday. Thank you for your support. Every time we have a report, we get to show board members who are on the road at campus events, fully engaged, and that makes a huge difference. And so I'm really grateful to each and every one of you. Back to you, Madam Chair.
One other thing that I did want to bring up, could we request a follow-up from our group to follow up on what Beneath had asked us to develop a resolution for the remaining broadband funding? How do we do that?
Absolutely. So what we can do is for the January board meeting, we can have a resolution drafted for the board to consider to ask the U.S. Department of Commerce, U.S. Department of Ed, and others to support release of those dollars to support our work. So we're happy to put a draft together for the board's consideration.
I just saw my little note on that and didn't want to end the meeting without it. Is there any other business to come before the board?
I know it'll be a day before many of us head out, but I would like to get an update. We were talking about the quarterly reports. You know, when we did our budget meeting back in August, September, and then the next week we've been hearing more and more from UL System institutions. So whether they come or whether someone, Elizabeth, gives us an update. I know we have a new process for quarterly financial reporting. What is the impact? We've heard from our tour at UL Monroe some things that they're doing. We continue to hear stuff about UL Lafayette, which is pretty gruesome, but I would like to get an update on how they are managing through that. And I think that will be it.
A great request. So members, our next meeting will be Monday, January 26th, starting at 9 a.m. Doreen, do we have any public comments, or Emily?
Just one quick question for Elizabeth. Where does David's request fall in your normal reporting cycle?
When we get the next quarter.
The first quarter actually being approved right now at the system board meeting. So once we receive their first quarter report, we'll be able to provide that information for January. So the process of quarterly fiscal reports is that once each quarter ends, they have to be signed and attested to by each chancellor and CFO of each institution, and they're presented to the system board.
So would we be getting Q4 of '25 in January?
So the Q4 is actually part and parcel to what is required by each state agency. It's their, the CAFR, AFR. Thank you.
Thank you.
So for us, what we do is we require their three, their first, second, and third quarter, and then their fourth quarter is what is required by the state. So we're able to combine all of that information into one annual report. Last year was our first time doing this requirement. We have since gone through it all. We've met with each of the system CFOs. We have some process improvements to what those look like. We'll be talking about that with our system presidents tomorrow, and we'll be able to provide that information.
I think it might be helpful for us to see that in a calendar to make sure we understand what we're.
Yeah.
We're happy to do that as a calendar for you, and I also want to acknowledge that we will have new system presidents engaged as well. Richard Nelson, LCTCS, Dr. Roos at LSU. We're waiting on a name of an interim system president at Southern, and so we will be meeting with those system presidents tomorrow in preparation for our budget conversation on this Friday with Commissioner Barra. This is budget season as the governor's office prepares, so we will definitely get you that calendar as well as the information requested. Thank you.
So just to clarify, Regent Sterling, what I would like a report on, the first quarter of this year, fiscal year, July, August, September, the ones that I want to know, where are the institutions? Are they making those adjustments in that 5%? Where are they in alignment with their budget? Did enrollment numbers hit? You know, full-time equivalents, that's the detail. And then we'll take second quarter probably by March, April. That way we won't be so farther behind.
That's what I'm saying, but we then need a calendar to know when.
I understand.
We will get you the calendar, and we will get you Q1.
Just if I don't ask for it, it don't seem like it pops up. That's why I want to make sure we get in January.
Any other comments? All right, I think that's it. Commissioner, do you have anything else? All right, is there a motion to adjourn? David and May, is there any further discussion, any questions, any objections? Hearing none, motion passes. We are adjourned. Merry